It was 7:15 a.m., and golden sunlight spilled through the dusty blinds of the break room on the 18th floor. I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the navy blue collar of my uniform. The badge clipped to my chest read Harper Quinn, Lead Maintenance Supervisor. 10 years. 10 whole years I'd worked in this high-rise office building in downtown Seattle. Not glamorous, but honest. I kept things spotless, floors gleaming, glass walls smudge-free, bathrooms fresh like lemon zest. People barely noticed me unless something went wrong. That's how it was in this job. "Early bird again, Harper?" called out Lena, one of my crew, balancing a mop in one hand and a to-go latte in the other. I smiled. "We've got a deep clean scheduled for the 30th floor. Summit Corp's Executive Lounge. CEO-level sparkle required." While she sipped her overpriced brew, I handed out the morning assignments. Everyone respected the way I ran things. I didn't shout. I didn't micromanage. I just did my job and made sure they could do theirs. After sending the team off, I checked my phone. No messages. Again. It had been 6 days since I last heard from my younger sister, Chloe. We weren't always like this. We used to be inseparable pinky promises and inside jokes. But as adults, we drifted. Chloe had clawed her way into the world of luxury marketing, now engaged to some corporate big shot Elliot Blackwell, VP of Summit Corp, the very company I quietly scrubbed toilets for. I hadn't even gotten a text since Mom told me about their engagement. That evening, I found myself back in my childhood neighborhood, quiet, tidy, filled with that eerie nostalgia that tugs at your stomach. Mom's house looked the same, red bricks, trimmed hedges, that slightly cracked walkway she'd always meant to fix. I knocked and let myself in. Voices from the living room floated through the hall. "So the planner suggests white roses and navy accents," Chloe was saying. "We must accommodate Elliot's father's connections," Mom added. "There are political figures and board members attending." As I stepped in, they both froze mid-conversation. A sea of wedding brochures fanned across the table. "Hey," I said, trying to smile. Chloe stood awkwardly. "Harper, hi." "Congratulations," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I heard about the engagement." "Yes. Thank you," Chloe replied, brushing an imaginary wrinkle from her skirt. "Elliot Blackwell." "As in the Summit Corp?" I asked. Her eyes lit up. "His father's the founder. Elliot is next in line." "Ah." So that's the altitude Chloe had reached. "So when's the wedding?" 3 weeks, Mom chimed in, not meeting my eyes. "We're quite busy." I blinked. 3 weeks? And I haven't received an invitation. There was a beat of silence. Chloe looked at Mom. Mom pursed her lips. "Well," Mom began, "we're still finalizing the list. Elliot's family is very selective." I frowned. "Selective how?" Chloe shifted. "We didn't know how to explain your role." "My role?" Mom stood, her tone practiced. "Harper, we told them you're in facilities management. Head of corporate operations. You mean I clean office buildings?" Mom winced. Chloe added, "They just have certain expectations." A pause. Then Mom delivered the final blow. "We told them you passed away. 10 years ago. Car accident." I stood there, heart pounding like a jackhammer. My hands shook, but my voice stayed level. "You told them I'm dead?" "It was the cleanest option," Mom said softly, like she was explaining the weather. Chloe looked down. "Please understand. Elliot's family is father. He's traditional." My mouth went dry. "You mean judgmental?" No one answered. I laughed once, bitter and sharp. "You're ashamed of me." "No," Chloe began, but her voice cracked. "You're ashamed," I repeated. "Of me. Of this uniform. Of 10 years of backbreaking, invisible work that keeps buildings like his running." Tears threatened, but I wouldn't give them the satisfaction. I turned, walking toward the door. "Harper, please," Chloe called. I stopped, just once, and said, "I'm not ashamed of what I do, but you should be ashamed of what you've done." I left. The next 3 days blurred together: work, wipe, mop, repeat. But their words clung to me like mildew. "We told them you passed away." Sometimes I caught myself staring at my reflection in a window, half expecting it to vanish like a ghost. Sunday afternoon, I was cleaning the windows in my little apartment when the doorbell rang. I peeked through the peephole. It was Mom. And Chloe. Great. I opened the door. Mom looked around my modest place like it was a crime scene. Chloe, still in full designer armor, forced a smile. We came to talk, she said. I crossed my arms. I panicked, she blurted out. At Mom's house. I didn't mean for it to come out like that. But it did, I said. You have to understand, Mom cut in. We only have one shot at aligning with the Blackwells. Aligning? I repeated. You make it sound like a business merger. This wedding is important, Chloe whispered. His family is powerful. His father's already looked into my background. If he finds out, what? I said, stepping forward. That your sister works hard? That she earns an honest living? Mom sighed. Please don't come to the wedding, Harper. The words sliced clean. I don't want them to find out, Chloe added. It's just for a few weeks. Then we can explain. No, I interrupted. You want me to disappear? Again. They stared at me, silent. Well, I said, voice trembling. You already buried me once. Should be easy to do it again, I pointed to the door. Get out. They left without another word. As the door closed behind them, I leaned against it, breath shallow, eyes burning. I looked around at my tiny apartment, my walls lined with certificates I'd earned not from Ivy League schools or Fortune 500 jobs, but from real, honest work they thought wasn't worth mentioning. Fine, if they wanted to erase me, they had no idea who they were trying to bury. The Monday after that conversation, I woke before the sun. There's something comforting about being awake while the world still sleeps. The streets were quiet, cold. My coffee tasted stronger that morning, like it knew I needed armor. By 6:00 a.m., I was already in the staff lounge of the building, reviewing task schedules. My hands were steady, but my stomach was a pit. That conversation with Chloe and Mom kept playing in a loop. Don't come to the wedding. We told them you're dead. Just a few more weeks. Weeks of pretending I didn't exist like my life, my dignity, my years of sweat and sacrifice could be shelved like some worn-out coat. Nope. Morning, boss, said Marcus, our newest team member. He was 19, full of energy, still too excited about floor polish. Morning, I said. You're assigned to the 12th today. Conference center needs a full reset. Got it. He grinned, wheeling away his cart. Once the crew was dispatched, I grabbed my checklist and headed toward the executive levels. Every January, we did a full, deep, clean top to bottom, every surface, every floor, every shadow. No room untouched. And today was the 30th floor, the one with Summit Corp's executive lounge. I tapped the elevator panel, heart rattling harder than I'd admit. The irony? I'd walked these floors hundreds of times, scrubbed the bathrooms, polished the hardwoods, sanitized the coffee machine handles. But now, those same floors carried an entirely different weight. This was Chloe's world, Elliot's world, the one I didn't belong in, apparently. The elevator doors opened, and I stepped out onto plush carpet, the kind you feel under your shoes. Expensive silence filled the air. I was halfway through cleaning the floor-to-ceiling windows when I heard a voice behind me. I never realized how good the view looked from a clean window. I turned, startled. A tall man in a charcoal suit stood behind me. Sharp features, silver hair, calm, unreadable eyes. I recognized him instantly. Thomas Blackwell, founder and chairman of Summit Corp, Elliot's father. Crap, Mr. Blackwell, I said quickly, wiping my palms on my uniform. Sorry I didn't see you there. No need to apologize. His voice was smooth, slow. He stepped closer, gazing out the window. You've done an excellent job. This place always shines. Thank you, I managed. I lead the maintenance team. He nodded slowly, then glanced at my name tag. Harper Quinn. That's a name I've heard before. My heart froze. I kept my smile. Really? It's a common name. Maybe so, he said, thoughtfully. Do you have family in the marketing industry? I swallowed. I do. You wouldn't happen to be related to Chloe Quinn, would you? And there it was. I am, I admitted carefully. She's my younger sister. His brows raised. Interesting. She mentioned she had a sister, but said you passed away years ago, that you died in a hiking accident. My throat tightened. Did she now? Thomas looked at me carefully. You seem very much alive to me. Silence hung between us. I didn't offer an explanation. and he didn't press. Instead, he turned toward the city skyline. I started this company in a windowless basement with a secondhand desk and a coffee pot that made everything taste like burnt rubber, he said. Now look at this. 30 floors up, offices with views of the bay. It's impressive, I replied. He glanced sideways. Not really. What's impressive is someone who shows up every day, takes pride in what they do, no matter what that is. His words sat heavy with meaning. I hope to see you again, Miss Quinn, he said. Enjoy the rest of your day. As he disappeared into the boardroom, I just stood there, frozen. Did he know? Did he really know? I finished the shift in silence, barely noticing the mop in my hands. My mind kept circling back to his eyes, sharp, curious, and not easily fooled. That night, I skipped dinner. Just sat on my couch, staring at the blank TV screen. Chloe and Mom wanted me erased. But what if their lie was already unraveling? And if Thomas Blackwell knew the truth? What would he do? 2 days later, I found out. It was a normal Thursday until my phone rang during lunch. Unknown number. I let it ring out. Then it rang again. Same number. Finally, I picked up. Hello, Miss Quinn? The voice was crisp, polite. This is Marie from Summit Corp's executive office. Mr. Blackwell has requested a meeting with you this afternoon. His personal office, 3:15 p.m. I blinked. You sure you have the right Harper Quinn? Yes, ma'am. He was very specific. I showed up early. Couldn't help it. I was wearing my cleanest uniform, hair tied back, nerves jangling like wind chimes in a storm. Marie greeted me with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She led me down a long glass hallway, then opened a door to the kind of office you only see in movies' bookshelves. Whiskey decanter, oversized windows framing the skyline. Thomas Blackwell stood by the window, hands clasped behind his back. Miss Quinn, he said, without turning. Thank you for coming. I stepped inside. You're probably wondering why I asked you here, he said. A little, I admitted. He turned to face me. I asked you because I wanted to confirm something, and also to apologize. Apologize? He nodded. For your sister's lie, for your mother's complicity, for everything you've likely endured since they decided your truth didn't fit their version of success. I couldn't breathe for a moment, he continued. I met you the other day without knowing who you were. And yet, I respected you instantly. You carry yourself with dignity, integrity, qualities that matter far more than bloodlines and resumes. I didn't know what to say. I confronted Chloe and your mother this morning, he said. I asked why they lied. They stumbled through excuses, but the truth was clear they were ashamed of you. I stared at the carpet. I'm not, he said. In fact, I'd be proud to have you in the family, which is why I told Elliot the truth myself. My head snapped up. He nodded. He deserves to know what kind of people he's tying his life to. Did he say anything? Thomas gave me a small smile. I think you'll be hearing from him soon. That night, I didn't sleep. At around 1 a.m., my phone buzzed. Chloe. I let it ring. Then it buzzed again. And again. Eventually, I answered. Harper, she said, voice frantic. I need to talk to you. Everything's falling apart. I didn't respond. I should have never lied. I know that now. I'm sorry, okay? Please, just call me back. Click. I stared at the screen. Then I did something I never thought I'd do. I blocked the number. For the first time in a long time, I chose peace. Let them sit with the lie they told, because I wasn't disappearing anymore. I was done being the ghost they buried. I was done pretending my life wasn't enough. By Friday morning, word had traveled. Not through gossip or texts, but through the quiet, unspoken glances from staff. The way conversations stopped when I walked into the break room. It didn't take a genius to figure it out. The lie was out, and I didn't care who knew anymore. What I hadn't expected, though, was how free I felt. I wasn't hiding anymore. I wasn't swallowing guilt or shame that didn't belong to me. I was just working like I always had. But then came Sunday, the day of the wedding. I woke to gray skies and cold coffee. I hadn't planned anything for the day, just some laundry, maybe clean my windows again. It felt symbolic somehow, as if wiping away dirt from the glass might clear the rest of my life too. At noon, my phone buzzed. I let it ring, then it rang again, blocked number. I ignored it, again. 10 minutes later, it rang once more. I sighed and picked up. Harper. Chloe's voice burst through, panicked, desperate. Please, where are you? I stayed quiet. You need to come to the venue, please. I thought I was dead, I said flatly. I know, God, I'm sorry, she sobbed. I didn't know what else to say to them, and now everything is falling apart. I still didn't speak. Elliot knows. His father told him. They're furious. Everyone's confused. The ceremony's supposed to start in an hour, and he's threatening to cancel everything. I blinked. Why are you calling me now? Because I don't know how to fix this. You're the only one he respects right now. The silence on my end stretched so long, she whispered. Please, don't do this to me. I looked out the window at the cloudy sky. I wasn't even angry anymore. Just tired. Where is it? I finally asked. The Marrowstone Grand, she choked out. Ballroom A. I hung up. Not for Chloe. Not for Mom. I was going for me. I pulled the dress from the back of my closet, navy silk, sleek and simple. It still had the tags on it. I'd bought it for a friend's wedding years ago, but never found the courage to wear it. I tied my hair back with purpose, steady hands, no fear. I hailed a cab, and as we climbed the hill toward the hotel, my stomach fluttered. The Marrowstone Grand was as glamorous as I remembered, columns and glass, valets in black suits, guests in gowns drifting like ghosts through the marble lobby. I paused at the entrance, heart pounding. This wasn't my world, but it also wasn't theirs alone. I walked up to the front desk. I'm looking for the Foster Blackwell wedding, I said. The concierge looked surprised. Ballroom A, just down the main hall. There's been a delay. Of course there had. I took a deep breath and walked toward the ballroom. Outside the heavy double doors, a group of guests murmured in confusion. An older woman gasped when she saw me. You're Chloe's sister, she whispered, eyes wide. I nodded. They said you were dead? I offered dryly. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. I didn't wait. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The scene was chaos. Chloe stood at the center of the room, in full wedding gown, mascara streaked down her cheeks. Mom paced behind her like a general about to lose a war. Elliot stood on the far side, arms folded, his face stone. And Thomas Blackwell? He was seated near the front, quiet, unreadable. All eyes turned to me. Mom was the first to speak. What are you doing here? You invited me, I said calmly. Or did you forget the frantic phone call 20 minutes ago? Chloe rushed over. Harper, thank you. I didn't know if you'd actually come. I wasn't sure either, I said. Elliot walked toward us, slow, deliberate. His gaze searched my face. So, you're Harper, yes. He nodded once. Your sister told me you were gone. For 10 years, apparently. Hiking accident. My jaw tightened. Apparently, I slipped off a cliff. And, into shame, he let out a humorless laugh. I didn't like being lied to, but I respect the truth. Even when it's messy. Chloe stepped forward. Elliot, I can explain. No, he interrupted, gently but firmly. You can't. Not yet. He turned to Thomas. Dad? Thomas stood. I've heard enough explanations for today. Then, to me, he said, Miss Quinn Harper, would you mind telling us the truth? The real one? I nodded. My heart was racing, but my voice was clear. My name is Harper Quinn. I've worked for this company for 10 years. I lead the maintenance division. I clean this building with a team I trained and trust. I take pride in what I do. And I was erased from this family's narrative because my job didn't fit their script. The room was dead silent. I didn't come here to ruin anything, I added. But I won't hide anymore either. I don't care about your money or your reputation. I care about respect. And I wasn't given any, not by my own blood. Mom opened her mouth, but Thomas held up a hand. Let her finish. I looked directly at Chloe. You didn't need to lie. I was never the one who was embarrassed. Chloe broke down, her knees trembling. I thought I was protecting the image. I didn't realize I was destroying the truth. Elliot looked at her. I fell in love with you because I believed you were honest, that you were grounded. You hid your sister's life like it was a stain. But she's the most real person in this room. Chloe was crying now, fully sobbing. Elliot stepped back. This wedding can't go forward. Not like this. A loud gasp echoed from the guests. I need time, he said. We all do. Thomas nodded. A wise decision. Then, to me again, you've shown more character in 5 minutes than I've seen from most people in my life. You're not just welcome here, you're someone this family should aspire to be. I didn't cry. Not yet. But something loosened in my chest. Chloe stood there, stunned. I ruined everything. I looked at her, really looked at her, my little sister, buried in lace and regret. No, I said gently. You still have time to rebuild it. But this time, do it with truth. Outside, the sky had cleared. Blue peeked through the clouds like it had been waiting. I walked down the hotel steps as murmurs followed me. Some people looked shocked, some confused. But I didn't care. I wasn't walking away in shame. I was walking away whole. For the first time in years, I slept like a stone. No spinning thoughts, no hollow ache behind my ribs. Just sleep deep, dreamless and still. The morning after the wedding that wasn't, I woke to sunlight cutting across my bedroom floor. Warm, clean. The city outside moved on like nothing had happened. But inside me, something had shifted. Finally, I brewed coffee and watched the steam rise, holding the mug like it anchored me. No apologies. No second guessing. No more erasing myself to make others comfortable. I didn't know what would happen next, whether Chloe and Elliot would patch things up, or if my mother would ever face what she'd done, but for once, that wasn't my problem to solve. Still, a part of me wondered what came after a truth like that, a truth big enough to crack a family in half. I got my answer 5 days later. I was on lunch break, sitting behind the building by the delivery ramp, my favorite quiet corner, when a familiar voice called out, "Mind if I sit?" I turned. It was Chloe. She wasn't wearing designer anything, just jeans, a sweater, and a worn look on her face like she hadn't slept much either. I nodded toward the milk crate beside me. "Go ahead." She sat down, hugging her knees like she used to as a kid. For a few seconds, we just listened to the distant hum of traffic. "I know I was wrong," she said quietly. "I said horrible things. Lied. Rewrote you out of our lives like you were some kind of mistake." I didn't interrupt. "But what hurts the most is, I convinced myself I was doing it for the right reasons," she added. "I thought success meant looking perfect, and you reminded me of everything I tried to bury. That's because I never played dress up with my life," I said. "I just lived it." She looked down. "Elliot's taking time to think. He hasn't called." I didn't say anything. "I don't blame him," she continued. "I lied to him. And to myself." More silence. Then she turned to me. "Do you hate me?" I sipped my coffee. "No, but I don't trust you. Not yet." She nodded. "Fair." We sat in silence for a while. Eventually, I spoke again. "You know, there's nothing wrong with wanting to rise, with dreaming big, but if you have to bury someone to get there, maybe you're climbing the wrong ladder." Her eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back. "I want to start over," she said. "Not with you, not just as sisters, but with myself." I believed her, or at least I believed she meant it right then. "Then start," I said. "But don't ask me to fix you." A week passed. Then two. And slowly, like moss creeping across stone, things began to change. Chloe didn't vanish this time. She called once a week. Sometimes just to say hi. Sometimes to ask what she should cook with leftover rice. She wasn't perfect, not even close, but she was trying. With less polish and more heart. Even Mom surprised me. It started with a letter. An actual handwritten one. Folded in half, left in my mailbox with no return address. "Harper, I've spent too many years chasing shadows. I mistook social standing for security. But I see now, I was clinging to a version of success that came with a cost. And that cost was you. I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope we can talk. Margaret, the first read it twice, then 3 more times. And I cried not out of pain this time, but because a part of me had always believed she'd never see me. Not really, but maybe. She was starting to. The next Sunday, Chloe invited me to brunch. Just her and me, neutral territory. A small cafe on Pine Street. No tablecloths, no forced smiles. She wore no makeup. I wore a t-shirt with a bleach stain. We talked about work, about childhood, about the time I let her cut my hair and she cried when it turned out crooked. It was easy, honest. No masks. When the check came, she reached for it. I didn't stop her. Outside, we lingered on the sidewalk. Thanks for coming, she said. I shrugged. Thanks for not calling me dead this time. She winced, then laughed a soft, embarrassed sound. We're a mess, she said. Yeah, I smiled. But maybe we're done pretending to be anything else. A few weeks later, something wild happened. I got called into Summit Corp's executive office again. I thought maybe I'd left a mop bucket in the wrong spot or used the wrong cleaning solvent on the conference table. My anxiety always went to the worst case scenario. But no, Thomas Blackwell greeted me personally. Harper, he said, motioning to the chair across from his desk. Sit, I sat. I'm starting a new initiative, he said. Employee equity, dignity, and recognition across all departments, from top floor to basement. And I want your input. I blinked. My input? You've led the cleaning division for a decade, quietly, effectively, and without ever asking for credit. I want that perspective at the table. Like a committee? I asked. Unsure. Like a promotion, he said, sliding an envelope across the desk. Facilities Operations Deputy Director. You'll be overseeing building-wide performance improvements, policy updates, and interdepartmental strategy. Same team. Bigger influence. I opened the envelope. The salary made me exhale hard. I'm not a manager, I said, unsure. I mean, I don't wear suits. He chuckled. Good. We've got enough suits. I need people who know what work actually looks like. I stared down at the offer. My fingers trembled. You don't have to answer today, he said. But I already knew my answer. That night, I sat on my apartment floor, barefoot, surrounded by candles and leftover takeout. I wasn't thinking about the wedding, or the lies, or the years I spent being invisible. I was thinking about how strange it is that sometimes, when you stop chasing people's approval, they finally start seeing you. I picked up my phone and texted Chloe. Dinner next week? Your place this time. I'll bring wine. You handle dessert. And no store-bought shortcuts. She replied almost instantly. Deal. I owe you cheesecake anyway, I smiled. For the first time, our relationship wasn't built on expectation or comparison. It was built on truth. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. Spring crept in like a quiet apology. Rain softened. The air turned warmer. Cherry blossoms fluttered down in slow motion across the sidewalks of downtown Seattle. I noticed them more these days, small things. Silent things. Like maybe I had more room in my chest now that I wasn't carrying everyone else's expectations on my back. Work had changed too. I still clean, though less often. My role had shifted from scrubbing baseboards to shaping policy. Meetings, proposals, budget reviews, and believe it or not, actual decision-making. Some days, I missed the rhythm of the mop, the way it grounded me. But other days, I sat in rooms full of suits and said things like dignity for every floor and watched men in silk ties nod like it had never occurred to them before. It was surreal. My new title read, Deputy Director of Facilities and Employee Wellness. Fancy, sure, but I still signed emails with just Harper, because titles were never the point. One afternoon, I walked into the maintenance office to check on Marcus and the crew. They were swapping jokes over a box of donuts, music playing from someone's phone. Hey, boss lady, Marcus grinned. We thought you traded us in for the glass tower upstairs. I laughed, tempting. But nobody else brings maple bars like you guys. Truth was, this room still felt more like home than the boardroom ever would. I leaned against the wall as they talked about upcoming floor repairs and restroom remodels. No drama. No lies. Just people doing their jobs and laughing through it. When I stepped out into the hallway, I ran into Thomas Blackwell. He nodded at the team behind me. You've built something solid down here. I shrugged. All I did was pay attention. That's rare, he said. Most people only look up. Maybe that's the problem, I replied. Everything worth building starts at ground level. He smiled, but it wasn't condescending. It was thoughtful. How's your family? I exhaled. Healing. Slowly. He gave a slight nod. That's the only kind of healing that lasts. Chloe had changed too. I didn't expect miracles. I didn't need them. But she was different now, less curated, more present. She had taken a step back from her agency job, gone freelance. Said she was tired of pitching luxury brands to people who didn't even want what they were selling. We had dinner every Thursday now, Just the two of us, no filters. One night, it was takeout on her couch. The next, burnt pasta at my place while we laughed over wine. Do you remember when we tried to build a blanket fort in the living room and Mom made us take it down because it looked messy? Chloe asked once, mid-giggle. Yeah, I said. That fort was our best work. She never liked messy, Chloe added. Maybe she never understood what real looked like. We both fell quiet after that, but it wasn't uncomfortable, it was honest. Then, one day, out of nowhere, Mom called. I hesitated before answering, but curiosity got the better of me. Hi, Harper, she said, voice careful. Do you have a minute? I do. I was wondering. She trailed off, gathering herself. Would you mind if I visited your workplace? Just once. I'd like to see it. I blinked. You want to see the building? No, she said gently. I want to see your world, the one I was too proud to understand. I told her to meet me the following Tuesday. She showed up in a cardigan and slacks, carrying a small notepad like she was visiting a museum. I took her through every hallway, introduced her to the crew, let her see the spreadsheets and schedules and long hours behind just cleaning. She stood quietly through it all. By the end of the tour, we sat together in the break room. I had no idea, she said, looking around. I know, I was wrong. I didn't respond. I let her sit with the weight of that. Do they know how much you do? She asked. They do now. She looked at me, something soft in her eyes I hadn't seen since I was 10. I'm proud of you, Harper. For once, it didn't sound forced. It just sounded true. Weeks turned into months. Chloe and Elliot? They took time, worked through their mess. Therapy, counseling, more honest conversations than they ever thought they'd need. Their wedding wasn't canceled, just postponed. And this time, I got an invitation, not the kind they send out of obligation, but one with my name handwritten on the front. Inside it read, to Harper, the sister who taught us all how to stand up, speak out, and stay true. Without you, none of this would have meant anything. Come as you are because that's exactly who we love. I cried when I read it. Not loud, not broken. Just soft tears, the kind that come when something long overdue finally arrives. The wedding took place at a small garden venue by the water. Nothing grand, nothing for show. Just close friends, family, and a gentle breeze. I wore a deep green dress that didn't try to impress anyone. Chloe wore a simple gown with no diamonds or beading, just soft fabric and sincerity in her eyes. Elliot stood beside her, looking both calm and grateful. When he saw me, he stepped forward and said, "Thank you, Harper, for everything." I nodded. "You've got yourself a stubborn bride." I like her that way. We shared a quiet laugh. During the vows, Chloe said, "I once believed perfection was the goal, but I've learned that truth is what makes love real. And no one taught me that more than my sister." People turned to look at me. I didn't hide. I stood tall. That night at the reception, after the dancing and the speeches, Chloe came up beside me holding 2 glasses of champagne. "To new beginnings?" she said. "No," I replied with a smirk. "To honest ones." We clinked glasses. Later, as I walked to my car alone under a sky full of stars, I passed a group of guests I didn't recognize. "Is that her?" one whispered. "That's Harper, right? The sister they—" "Yeah," another said. "But she's the one who saved it all." I didn't say anything. I just kept walking. Because I didn't need anyone else's version of me anymore. I knew exactly who I was. And that was enough. 6 months later, the city breathed different. Not louder, not softer, just clearer, like rain had washed old things away and left something quiet in their place. From my apartment window, I could see the whole skyline. It shimmered at night, especially the Summit Court building, which now had a new mural in the lobby, one painted by a local artist to honor every worker who keeps the city standing. Janitors, mechanics, cafeteria staff, maintenance crews, no gold plaques, no names, just hands in motion. That mural meant more to me than any award ever could. My apartment was warm that evening, full of voices and the smell of rosemary chicken. I'd invited the people who mattered most, now people who had shown up, stayed in the mess, and helped clean the emotional dust we'd all ignored for years. Chloe and Elliot came early, carrying dessert and a new board game they claimed I'd love. My crew from work brought beer and bad jokes. Even Thomas Blackwell stopped by briefly with a bottle of expensive wine he claimed tasted better than it should. And Mom? She came last. She knocked quietly, like she wasn't sure she was allowed in. When I opened the door, she smiled. I brought your favorite, she said, holding up a small container. Peach cobbler. Made it myself. No canned stuff this time? I asked, teasing. She grinned. Only fresh. I stepped aside and let her in. We all sat around my dining table, mismatched chairs and folding stools squeezed in tight. Plates full, wine glasses clinking. Laughter rising, soft and real. No performance, no masks. Just people flawed, healing, and trying. At one point, Chloe leaned over and whispered, "You know, your apartment feels bigger these days." I smiled. That's what happens when the weight lifts. Elliot raised his glass mid-toast. To Harper, whose strength forced all of us to finally look in the mirror. People clapped, some nodded, and Mom, sitting beside me, reached out and gently touched my hand. "I'm proud of the woman you are," she said quietly, "and I'm sorry I didn't see her sooner." I didn't cry. Not this time. Instead, I gave her hand a light squeeze and said, "Better late than never." Later that night, when the dishes were done and the lights were low, Chloe and I stood on my balcony watching the city flicker below. She took a long breath. "Remember that time we got in trouble for sneaking out to the park after dark?" I chuckled. "You blamed me. And I let you. I was scared," she said. "But you always made it feel like we'd be okay." I looked at her. "We are okay. It just took a little longer than we thought." She nodded, eyes misty. "Thank you for not giving up on me. I didn't do it for you," I said. "I did it for the truth." At work, change kept coming. The new leadership initiative I'd helped launch was gaining traction. Staff from all departments, janitorial, clerical, even cafeteria, were now invited into quarterly meetings. Real voices in real rooms. One morning, I found a sticky note taped to my locker. "Thanks for reminding this place that we matter." Anonymous, I didn't need to know who left it. I just smiled and stuck it on my clipboard next to the others I'd collected over the years, small notes, forgotten thank yous, reminders of a job well done, reminders of value beyond title. By summer, Chloe and Elliot had rescheduled the wedding, a smaller one, backyard ceremony, homemade vows. Less sparkle, more soul. This time there were no lies, no seating chart politics, just truth. Imperfect and honest. Chloe asked me to stand beside her. Not as a symbol of family repaired, but because, in her words, "You've always been the one holding me up, even when I didn't deserve it." And when she walked down that makeshift aisle in our aunt's garden, barefoot and laughing, I knew we'd finally built something real. Not out of performance, but out of light. Mom surprised us all that day. After the vows, she gave a short toast. Nothing fancy. Just her voice, shaking a little, holding a glass with chipped polish on her fingers. "I used to think appearances mattered most," she said. "But standing here now, I know better. What lasts is honesty. What matters is love built on truth. And my daughters, they taught me that." She raised her glass to Harper and Chloe, two roots from the same tree, growing in different directions, but always connected. There wasn't a dry eye in the backyard. That night, after the cake and laughter and barefoot dancing in the grass, I sat alone for a moment under the string lights. Quiet again, but not empty. Chloe walked over, barefoot and holding her heels in one hand. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded. "More than okay." She sat beside me. "You think we'll mess it all up again?" "Maybe," I said. "But we'll fix it faster next time." We both laughed. Then, for a long moment, we just sat in the stillness, two sisters, older now, braver, softer in the right places, stronger in the rest. Now, I wake up every day knowing I was never buried. I was planted, and from the dirt, from the silence, from every ignored corner and quiet shift I cleaned, I grew. My legacy isn't a title or a corner office. It's the people who no longer feel invisible because someone finally saw them. It's the truth that cracked through the lies and made room for light. It's dust turned to dignity. And it's mine, story too. For as long as I can remember, my sister Sarah was the golden kid. My name is Amanda. She always came first, even though she was 3 years younger than me. As perceived by our parents, They did not completely ignore me, don't get me wrong, they just preferred her. When I was added to the debate squad, they grinned and nodded. They organized a reception when Sarah joined the cheer squad. We went to the outlet mall when I needed new clothes. Sarah went on a weekend shopping binge at the luxury retailers downtown when she required a new wardrobe. Dad was no exception. Every Saturday, he would take Sarah to the park, buy her ice cream, and spend hours pushing her on the swings. I would follow along, sometimes taking a few steps behind them, and watch their dark hair bounce in time as they laughed at inside jokes. I didn't participate. The fact that Sarah wasn't mean about it nearly made it worse. She didn't attempt to shove it in my face or make me feel bad. Like a cute little sponge, she was simply there, taking in all the attention, as I learned how to thrive in the background. We were close friends. Not nearly, but also not hostile. Like two planets orbiting the same sun, we lived in exquisite balance and never came into touch, but also never quite making a connection. I pushed myself into my academics because I couldn't find the same feeling of fulfillment at home as I found in academic accomplishment. At our parents' pleasure, Sarah was happy to cruise by on her charm. I worked very hard. Each A+, academic distinction, and teacher recognition functioned as a brick in the wall I created around my heart. For her age, Amanda is quite mature. At conferences, teachers would tell my parents that I was a very committed student. After giving Sarah a courteous smile, my parents would head straight home to assist her with her schoolwork or comfort her over a small social drama. It was just the way things were, I told myself, and I was okay with it. Now that I look back, I should have recognized the warning flags. The way her smile tightened when I could do something that Sarah couldn't. When our parents actually listened to me, resentment flashed in her eyes. When I was in the limelight, she would subtly shift the subject to herself. But even though I would never be the favorite, I was too focused on proving myself and trying to be the perfect daughter. I believed that if I worked hard and accomplished enough, people could eventually recognize me for who I truly am. My getaway was college. At last, a setting where putting in effort genuinely paid off, where accepting responsibility was not a reward but a strength, even though my straight has finally paid off. I was enrolled to State University on a partial scholarship. While some freshmen were having a hard time adjusting, I pushed myself into college life with the same vigor I'd brought to high school. I was doing very good. I joined the business club, made the dean's list, and received an internship at Preston and Associates, one of the city's top financial firms. You're naturally good at it. My supervisor told me at my internship assessment, "After graduation, we hope you will work with us full-time." I nearly floated home that day. For once, everything was coming together as I had intended, not as anybody else had. In contrast, Sarah started college 3 years after I did. Her full tuition was sponsored by her parents, provided her with a comfortable apartment near university and a monthly allowance. I earned more than that in my part-time work. "You're special." When I brought up the disparity, Dad remarked, "Your sister needs to concentrate on the college experience. You actually enjoy studying." He was not mistaken. Sarah was expanding her social media following as I was building mine. Her Instagram was flooded with pictures from spring break activities and parties. She always had a fresh yarn about some crazy night out when I returned home. "You should come party with us someday," she'd say. I knew full well that I couldn't join her after graduation since I was too busy with my studies and internship. Preston and his associates kept their word. I rented a modest but respectable apartment downtown when I first started as a junior analyst. It wasn't much, but it was mine, acquired with my own hard labor. James and I met there. He had soft eyes, was tall, well-groomed, and radiated a calm assurance that made my heart skip a beat. He was the financial director. After a company happy hour, we began bumping into each other in the break room. At last, he invited me to dinner. When he proposed 6 months later, I was over the moon. He did it properly down on one knee at our favorite restaurant, with a ring that must have cost him at least 3 months' salary. I was thrilled to share with my family. Sarah, who had just graduated and returned home, was invited to join us for supper at my parents' place. She'd been working some entry-level marketing job, though, from her social media. When she was happy, she seemed to be more active than when she was at her desk. The evening got off to a decent start. Mom made her amazing pot roast. Dad uncorked his finest wine, and James enthralled everyone with stories about his work and aspirations for the future. Amanda definitely lucked out with you, Mom gushed, touching James's arm. What a mature young dude. They make such a beautiful match, Dad said, smiling at us. What time is the wedding? For once, it felt wonderful to be the focus of attention. James clutched my hand beneath the table while my parents peppered us with questions regarding wedding places and dates. Conversely, Sarah was seated across the table, munching on her food, her face growing darker by the second. I saw it while she was examining my engagement ring. She drew a little line with her mouth. She would shift uncomfortably in her chair or roll her eyes a little whenever James spoke. James and I agreed not to hurry into the wedding. We started looking at places, discussing color schemes over dinner, and planning our future together on the weekends. I'd never been happier that everything changed on a Tuesday evening. I had just ended my weekly video conference with my wedding planner, so I knew that it was Tuesday. I was still in my work clothes when James knocked on my door. There was something strange. His face resembled a thundercloud, and he usually texted before coming. "We need to talk," he continued, pushing past me into the apartment. He spoke in a frigid tone, not like the warm, comforting tone I was used to. "What's wrong?" I asked, my gut nodding with anxiety immediately. He pulled out his phone and started browsing. "Would you mind explaining?" My heart stopped as he showed me each photo. There, I saw someone who resembled myself in precarious situations with other men. Screenshots of purportedly sexual text conversations between me and other males were all on his screen. James, it's not. My boys never shuddered as I tried to make sense of what I was seeing. "They're not real. I've never cheated on you." "Fake." He gave a harsh laugh. "These were supplied to me by your own sister." "Sarah made this whole thing up. Is that what you mean? Sent false images and messages to keep us apart? Why would she do that? I have no idea why she would do this." "James, please check my phone." I raced over to the coffee table and snatched it. "Check everything. There's nothing like this there. I've never cheated on you. Do not bother." He moved back and cut me off as I tried to hand him my phone. "Amanda, I trusted you. I thought you were different, but you're no different from everybody else. A traitor who cheats and lies. Please, James." I begged, tears streaming down my face. "You are familiar with me. You know I wouldn't do this," but his eyes were chilly and distant. "We're done. Never try to get in touch with me again." My world was upended by the finality with which the door slammed behind him. I tried to contact him right away, but it went straight to voicemail. There would be no text message delivery. The email bounced back. I was blocked everywhere by him. I sobbed till my whole body shook and collapsed onto my couch. How can this be? What gave him the sense that I would cheat on him and Sarah? I had been harmed by my own sister. As I cried till my eyes were dry, the hours blended together. My phone was lighting up with worried texts from friends and coworkers. It seemed that James had already started to spread the word about my infidelity. I cried myself to sleep, and my only objective when I woke up the next morning was to confront Sarah. As I dialed her number, my hands shook. She was half expecting the call to be ignored, but she picked up on the second ring. "If it's not my adulterous sister, that is." In answer, she said in a mock-sweet voice, "You did it, but why?" My voice broke. "Why would you fabricate such messages and photos?" She laughed. "Actually," I chuckled. My blood ran cold at the sound. "Really, Amanda, did you think I would give you your perfect happily ever after? You're wed to a handsome, accomplished man like James? Please. What are you talking about? He is not worthy of you." Her voice suddenly turned savage. "None of it is fair to you. The best position, the ideal fiancé. Who do you think you are?" I felt as though I had been struck. "Sarah, we're sisters." "Sisters?" She sneered. "Please. You're only second best, Amanda. You always were and always will be, and you will always be there. Were you really under the impression that you could marry someone like James before me? It doesn't work like this. In a single moment, 25 years of sisterhood destroyed all those memories. Whispered secrets, forced smiles at family gatherings, and shared rooms. Everyone gained a unique meaning. The tense moments, eye rolls, and backhanded compliments all made sense now. with the knowledge slamming me like a truck? I whispered. You've been jealous of me the entire time. Are you jealous? Then she laughed again. Don't fool yourself. In every way, I'm superior than you. I couldn't bear to watch you and James play house, when everyone is aware of your lack of merit for him. That afternoon, desperate for help, I went to my parents' place. They must believe me. They would undoubtedly notice Sarah's actions. I was mistaken. Amanda, sweetheart? Mom shook her head and answered, Why are you attempting to blame your sister for your mistakes? However, I made no mistakes. I practically shrieked. Sarah faked everything. That's what she said. Dad crossed his arms. Your sister would never act in such a manner. Give up attempting to assign blame. You might acknowledge it if you cheated on James. I left their house in a daze. Again, it was Sarah, the golden child who could do no wrong. In addition, I was the unreliable screw-up. But even while I was down, life kept kicking me. My access card was denied when I got to work the next morning. Security took me to HR, where a compassionate-looking woman handed me my termination papers. She looked around to make sure no one could hear her mutter, I'm so sorry. James urged for quick firing. He replied he couldn't work in the same building as well. I didn't even finish reading the paperwork. I just signed it, packed up my desk, and walked with my head held high. At least until I reached my car, where I really lost it. 3 days later, my best buddy Jenny gave Amanda a call. The news that Sarah and James are dating is something I'm not sure how to tell you. She has been posting pictures of the two of them on Instagram. She claims that since your betrayal, she has been assisting him in getting better. I tossed my phone across the room and hung up without responding. Within a week, I had lost my job, my fiancé, and the trust of my family. And now? My sister had helped me lose the man she was now seeing. I was hit like a ton of bricks by a month of depression. I seldom left my flat except to get food. I've been saving for the wedding, thank God. If nothing else, I would be able to spend my time sulking without worrying about rent. I spent my days in a haze, alternating between sobbing and just looking at Netflix shows. It was hard for me to focus. I kept my phone off most of the time. I couldn't take any more photos of Sarah and James together. I couldn't bear to get another nice message from friends asking how I was. Then I woke up in bed with some lucidity at about 3 in the morning. I was able to think clearly for the first time in weeks after the fog cleared. I didn't want to die. I wanted more than petty retaliation with inebriated texts or drama on social media. No, I wanted to expose Sarah for who she truly was, to show everyone the serpent hiding behind that innocent grin. It was as if a switch had been flipped in my brain. I took my first bath in days the following morning, dressed in my finest suit, and began looking for a job. In less than 2 weeks, I was hired by Morrison Financial, a larger company than Preston, with a corner office and better benefits. I even resumed going to see my folks. I'm doing better now, I tell them with a practiced smile. Sometimes things break apart so that better things might come together. In the end, they were relieved to see their older daughter mature. I went through family meals, nodding nicely when Sarah and James would arrive up hand in hand. When no one else was present, Sarah would give me these small smirks and he would avoid looking at me directly. James and I are considering about getting engaged, she revealed at one such meal, studying me carefully for a reaction. I just smiled and asked to pass the potatoes. This went on for 2 years. As my career progressed, I built a reputation for myself in the industry. I went on a couple dates and waited, but nothing committed. Patience had always been my strength. Then I had my opportunity. Sarah was hosting Sunday supper at our parents' place without James because he was on a business trip. While aiding Mom with dessert, she had left her phone on the kitchen counter. I was aware of her passwords. She'd always been irresponsible about security, placing sticky notes with her login information all over her workstation at our parents' house. Getting into her phone took less than a minute. And there it was, months of communications with someone named Mike. Hundreds of texts. Dozens of photos that would make James's blood boil. Jay is so dull, my God. One message was read. He only discusses his investments and job. At least he's loaded. I'm really happy to see you tomorrow, honey. Another said. We're staying in a luxury hotel owing to Jay's credit card. My hands shook as I forwarded everything to my email. The hotel receipts, the pictures, the texts. In their conversation history, I even located Mike's address. They weren't even attempting to exercise caution. Obtaining the video footage was nearly too easy. Mike's residence was in a calm suburban neighborhood, suitable for inconspicuous observation. I parked a rented car across the street for a few of evenings with my phone's camera ready. Sarah wasn't exactly subtle about her afternoon visits. She'd pull up in the Mercedes. James had bought her, practically skipping to Mike's front door. Their passionate hugs on the doorstep gave me all the footage I needed. "Baby, I missed you." She would cue loudly enough to be heard by the microphone on my phone. "James, in comparison to you, is really boring." I collected 3 weeks' worth of videos. Sarah sneaking out of his house at strange hours, making out with Mike against his car, and laughing over what appeared to be pricey champagne on his patio. It was probably paid for with James's credit card. The engagement celebration followed. Sarah demanded that it be held at our parents' house. She had argued that it was more intimate, but in reality, she wanted to impress the entire family. The ring James gave me was twice as big as the one he used to pop the question. James's whole family, as well as friends and family, were crammed into the house. In the living room, Sarah held court while her ring was visible to all. Mom and Dad smiled with delight, while James's folks continued complimenting on what a wonderful couple they formed. "I would want to toast," I announced, rising up during a gap in the discourse. All eyes went to me. Sarah shot me. That superior look I'd grown so used to, the same look she'd given me 2 years ago when she'd stolen my fiancé. What a miserable creature. Probably assumed I was ready to offer some nice statement about being delighted for them. "I want to share something with everyone." I continued to connect my phone to the TV. "You could say a little engagement present." The first text messages appeared on the screen. Sarah's face became white. "What is this?" Squinting at the messages, James got to his feet. "Oh, just some conversations between your fiancé and her boyfriend, Mike." Calmly, I replied. "There are a good number of them. They like telling others how boring you are, James." "You're at least rich, aren't you?" Sarah sputtered. That's not. And here's some video evidence in case anyone has questions." The films of Sarah and Mike kissing her and leaving his house at midnight were shown to me one by one. Sarah laughing about James while sipping expensive wine. Chaos broke out in the room. James shouted at Sarah as he got to his feet. His parents yelled about scandal and shame. Our family members were pointing and whispering, "You insane fool." I heard Sarah yell at me. "How did you accomplish this?" "Funny," I remarked. 2 years ago, I wanted to ask you exactly that." Mom collapsed onto the couch, sobbing. Dad didn't move. Like a fish out of water, opening and shutting its mouth. I didn't stay to see what happened. I grabbed my stuff, got to my car, and drove home in complete solitude. I poured a glass of wine for myself inside my flat and sat on my balcony to watch the city lights sparkle. In 2 years, for the first time, I felt entirely at peace. My phone rang at about 7 a.m. the following morning. The screen flashed Mom's name. "How could you inflict such disgrace to your sister?" Before I could say hello, she let out a scream. "James called off the engagement. She is distraught. You need to fix this right now." "Fix what exactly?" I asked calmly. "The reality of her infidelity. The fact that she was apprehended, or maybe you want me to see to it, that she is ultimately held responsible for her crimes." "She's your sister." On the line was Dad's voice. I was on speaker. "Family protects family. Either you or we'll solve this." Or did I interrupt him? Returned to her side. "Go ahead. I'm accustomed to it." I blocked their numbers and hung up. Before I dealt with any more family turmoil, I needed coffee. But before I could complete my first cup, there was a knock on my flat door. "Open up, you blasted bastard!" Sarah's words reverberated throughout the corridor. I approached the door gently, unlocked it, and took a step back as she hurried in. "You ruined everything." With mascara flowing down her cheeks, she let out a scream. "My life was ruined by you. Do you not believe that karma is a bitch?" I sipped my coffee once more. "I'll make you answer for this." From my wall, she grabbed a framed photograph and threw it at me. "Like you made me pay 2 years ago, I got away with it easily." Quietly, I asked, "When you took James for yourself, when you ruined my relationship, and when you made up proof that I had cheated?" She froze, her face lighting up with realization. "You? Did you have this planned?" Everything? The entire time. 2 years. I was an attestant. Watching and waiting for 2 years. Playing the forgiving sister for 2 years. For 2 years, you were aware that you would finally show who you really were. The words "you're crazy," she whispered. Sarah, no. I have patience. In contrast to you, I was able to exact my revenge with just tangible proof. She ran out of my apartment like she had seen a ghost. My parents sent me a litany of guilt-tripping notes in the weeks that followed. Sarah had lost her work due to her mental instability. She wasn't sleeping or eating. She'd moved back home and spent her days crying in her old bedroom. Your sister has been ruined by you. Mom texted. Are you happy now? I didn't answer. What might be said? Dad made another attempt. You're out of the will if you don't make this right. Is that what you want? I responded to that one at last. Do anything you want with your money. I've already acquired everything I desired. The reality? They didn't like that answer much. But for the first time in my life, I didn't care what others thought of me. My job was blossoming, but my personal life had been a soap opera. When Morrison Financial promoted me to senior director, I got a big raise in a corner office. After losing her marketing career, Sarah, on the other hand, fell to her lowest point. She returned to our parents' house. At that point, the drinking began. You can drink wine for breakfast or vodka for lunch. She managed to get it. Eventually, during one of her drunken tantrums, the truth came out. Later, Mom informed me about it. How Sarah began chatting while spread on the couch, halfway through a bottle of wine. I showed him the images she'd mumbled, made them all up. I encountered a woman who looked like Amanda. Got someone to assist me fake the texts. She didn't deserve him anyhow. I was more deserving of him. Mom and Dad listened in stunned silence as their perfect younger daughter finished her drunken confession, spilling all the beans about how she had orchestrated my death. 2 years of falsehoods came tumbling down in one alcohol-soaked evening. Dad phoned me the next day. His voice carried passion. Amanda and we have to talk. Would you be able to visit? When I found them both in the living room, they looked 10 years older. Mom couldn't even look me in the eye. We were mistaken. Dad explained everything in plain terms. For a very long time, we have been mistaken. Mom burst into tears. What prevented us from seeing it? What caused us to be so blind? You were let down by us. Not just about James, but your entire life, Dad said. Sarah was always our favorite. Always made excuses for her. We couldn't believe she was capable of such cruelty, so we let her get away with ruining your happiness. It was the expression of regret. All my life, I had been waiting to hear, but instead of feeling triumphant, I felt worn out. Dad cleared his throat. I've been thinking about it. Family therapy could be something we wish to attempt. The three of us to work through everything. So we did. Every Tuesday night, we gathered in the medical marshal's office to unravel decades of mistrust, animosity, and favoritism. It wasn't simple. Shouting matches and tears were heard. Awkward quiet for weeks. But slowly, things started to change. As for Sarah, my parents finally did what they should have done years ago. They cut her off. They gave her enough money to pay an apartment security deposit and the first month's rent, sincerely apologizing for what she had done and letting her know that she could come back as soon as she got help. According to what I've been told, she lives in a studio apartment and works as a receptionist downtown. She occasionally texts her parents, but they are adamant about maintaining their limits. Eventually, James contacted out. He had heard it all from my folks. The years of manipulation, Sarah's confession, everything. He requested a coffee date. I ought to have trusted you, he said, seeming older and weathered. At the very least, I ought to have heard your perspective. Perhaps we might try again, although I'm aware that it's probably too late. I examined his face. It was the face I had thought I would see every morning for the rest of my life. I felt nothing. No, I said quietly. I forgive you, James, but I no longer love you. 2 years ago, I was a different person. I live a calmer life now. Every Sunday, my parents and I eat dinner together. We're not perfect. There are still uncomfortable moments. Old habits don't go away easily, but we're trying. And that's more than we ever did previously. I don't feel bad about telling Sarah. I refer to it as justice, although some may term it retaliation. She is presently coping with the consequences of her choices. For my part, I'm precisely where I want to be. My career is doing well. I live alone. And for the first time in my life, I don't feel less than anyone. Story 3. While we recover, it will only be for a few months. As Mike nodded solemnly behind her, Jessica clung to her legs, promising her 2 children. Natalie, we've lost everything. Our only hope is you. I'm Natalie, and at the age of 29, I was on the verge of making the worst decision of my life, allowing my stepsister's family to come into my tastefully furnished 2-bedroom flat. The office at home. The serene area where I established my freelance design firm has been refined over years. Chaos was ready to encroach on everything. The workplace is a good place for youngsters to nap, Jessica went on, pointing to her 6-year-old Tyler and 4-year-old Emma. The guest room is ours. You won't even realize we're here. I glanced at my spotless living room, where my drafting table was situated next to the window, letting in the ideal amount of natural light at my well-organized workstation with 2 monitors, which was just the right amount of silence for meeting client deadlines. I work from home, I reminded them. That area is necessary for my business. You can work wherever. I see. Jessica dismissed it with a wave. The table in the kitchen. Your sleeping quarters. Drawing doesn't really require a big room. I suppressed a retort that graphic design was more than simply illustration. How I had created a profitable company that covered the cost of this flat. How I had picked this location with care since it was well lit and out. They had nowhere else to go, though, and they were family. Or so they said. Months of unpaid bills had resulted in the foreclosure of their own home. They blamed everyone but themselves, including the bank, the economy, and their employment. It's only transitory. Mike reassured me, but there was a strange tone in his voice. Only till we save up a deposit and find new work. I ought to have inquired further about their goals, schedule, financial situation, and the reasons for their inability to remain with Jessica's father or Mike's family. My ex-stepfather, who had remarried and relocated to Florida, explained why they had waited until the very last minute to seek assistance. Rather, because they were family, because they had children, and because Jessica had been grieving over her children's homelessness. I found myself saying yes. You're saving lives. Jessica's expensive scent overwhelmed me as she gave me a hug. We'll be visitors at the model house, I swear. After 2 days, they moved in with more possessions than someone who had lost everything should have. The children started racing through my peaceful flat right away. Their screams reverberated off the walls. As he stretched down on my couch, Mike inquired about Jessica and the cable channels and Wi-Fi password. My kitchen cabinets were already being rearranged by her to improve their functionality. The first week served as a sneak peek at the impending disaster. My kitchen was in utter chaos every morning when I woke up. There were plenty of dishes. Overnight, food was left out. My immaculate counters have sticky places. After preparing meals for her family, Jessica says she was too tired to clean up. Juice cartons and half-eaten leftovers took over my neatly arranged refrigerator. I stored my specialty art supplies in designated locations for convenient access during client calls, but they were frequently relocated or tucked away where I couldn't find them. According to Jessica, the children require room to do their assignments. When I saw my drafting table crammed into a corner and strewn with smashed crayons and coloring books, I take it you can work in your bedroom? Even my bedroom, which served as my final haven, wasn't holy. Usually, while I was on client calls, Jessica would storm in without knocking. The children require some peaceful time. She would yell and mutter as she ushered Tyler and Emma into my private area. While Mike and I do errands, just keep an eye on them for 1 hour. It seems like the errands take 3 or 4 hours every time. While Tyler bounced on my bed and Emma wrote on my walls, I would attempt to remain professional during Zoom calls. We are looking for a job, Mike would say when they got back. However, it appears that none of them ever had a real interview. Jessica would have a new manicure, or they would return with shopping bags from the mall. The cost of my groceries quadrupled. They said they had to save every penny for their new home, so they never made a contribution. Jessica managed to pay for her monthly hair appointments and expensive coffee trips, though, somehow. Family supports family. Every time I mentioned expenditures, she would say, "Do you recall the date of our parents' marriage?" Everything was exchanged between us. Next, we hadn't told each other everything. Just like she was doing now, Jessica had stolen everything. When our parents were married, I was 11 and she was 12. And my mom had been a sneak peek at this very scenario during the 3 years prior to her dad's departure. When I requested her to please quit rearranging my painting supplies, she said, "You're being dramatic. Normal families live like this. You live alone like a hermit, so you're just not used to it." The term temporary began to seem like a joke. They didn't try to find flats. They always came up with a new excuse when I brought up their plans. Right, present? The rental market is really difficult. We're holding out for the ideal moment. At last, the children are at home. We can't force them to go so quickly. My job degraded in the interim. With all of the interruptions and my desk in disarray, meeting deadlines became all but impossible. Customers began to notice that I was becoming less productive. My hard-earned reputation was in jeopardy. One Tuesday afternoon was the tipping moment. I had gone to a coffee shop in order to fulfill an important deadline. Recently, it's the only way to finish any task. 3 hours later, I came home to find my living room entirely changed. I had lost my drafting table. My twin monitor setup had been thrown against a wall and replaced by a gigantic toy organizing system that had been put into the apartment storage unit without my consent. The area where I had established my career was dominated by bright plastic containers with children's toys. Unexpected. Jessica smiled and pointed at the confusion. The children have a dedicated play space now. Much more efficient use of the area, isn't it? In the entryway, my laptop bag slipping off my shoulder, I stood still. My drafting table is where? Yes, we did store that old item. In any case, you never actually utilized it. These days, you're always using your laptop. Since they occupied my workstation, since I had had to adjust to their invasion of my house, since I had been too kind to defend myself. She wrinkled her nose and said, "Those monitors are an eyesore. Really, we ought to. Keep your hands off my equipment." I had never heard my voice sound that harsh. My workplace is here. My office. My house. Our house currently. Mike didn't even look up from his phone as he called from the couch. Family members share? Correct. Jessica maintained that the children needed room to play. They cannot be expected to spend their days caged up in one room. They're offspring. I also need her office because I'm a working professional. It's not a creche facility in this flat. It's where I work. You're being self-centered. The pain tone of Jessica's voice returned. What specifically have you done after all we've done and everything you've done? Besides occupy my house, interfere with my job, and disregard my boundaries? We are related. No. You are occupying someone else's space. You've hunted, you've had a flat, you haven't hunted, and you haven't paid $1 towards expenditures. All you've done is take and take. When I raised my voice, Emma began to weep. Jessica grabbed her right away and gave me a martyred expression. Look at what you did now. Come on, darling, let's escape cruel Aunt Natalie's refusal to give up her toys. I saw them withdraw to the visitors' quarters. Now their room, apparently, and I felt something break inside of me. This was not a sharing situation. It was an invasion. My livelihood, my calm, and my space were all stolen. When they had all gone to bed that evening, I opened my laptop and began planning. I carried out my strategy throughout the course of the next week with the same level of accuracy that I used to my design assignments. I started by looking for a new flat across town. It was a one-bedroom flat with a designated office nook and stringent lease conditions about overnight visitors. I was thankful to have saved money despite my increased expenditures from working at the coffee shop, so I used it to pay the deposit. I gradually relocated my most valuable possessions to a little storage space. Everything I couldn't risk, including my portfolio materials, backup discs, and my pricey drawing tablet. Jessica gradually stopped reorganizing. I kept a record of everything: pictures of the workstation I hijacked, screenshots of texts about looking for a job and a flat that were ignored, lists of costs they had never paid for. Jessica even confessed on tape that they hadn't really looked at any flats since they were two at home at my. When I described the problem to my landlord, he was surprisingly understanding. He reminded me they weren't on the lease. They are technically occupants who are not authorized. I can get them taken off. Please don't extend my lease for another month, I informed him. Perhaps I should have said that you would be showing the flat to potential new renters. The day before my intended departure, I made arrangements for my utilities to be turned off. Not right away. I wasn't mean enough to cut off the children's electricity or water, but I was mean enough to make Mike and Jessica act at last. Keeping things normal was the most difficult aspect, as I got ready. I put up with Jessica moving my remaining possessions every day. Despite Mike's justifications on the employment market, I nodded. I even took care of one final time while they went flat searching, which eerily resembled a mall day based on their Instagram posts. As Jessica lay splayed on my couch that night with shopping bags at her feet, she murmured, "We really appreciate everything you've done. You're a wonderful sister for allowing us to remain till we locate the ideal location." "When is that going to happen?" I inquired, observing her as she unpacks her brand new shoes. "Oh, it's just like that. These things require time. We can't be content with any flat. We must consider the youngsters, don't we? The kids? This place is ideal for us, really. Plenty of room, a pleasant neighborhood, and an excellent school district. We've reorganized now. We might as well spend the summer here, at least." I grinned as I surveyed my old workplace, which is now a tumultuous playground. Yes, they were unaware that I would be leaving in 3 days over the summer. They have no concept how comfy they are. My life's invasion was coming to an end, unaware that confrontation isn't always the greatest form of retaliation. It's well planned. On a Wednesday when nobody was around, I relocated. Jessica at her appointment at the salon, Mike at what looked to be more beer than networking at his weekly networking lunch, as well as the school children. My new flat was prepared. The relocation company is prompt and effective. Everything I had was in my new home or securely stored by midday, along with printouts of all the expenses they had accrued during their stay, 3 months' worth of supermarket receipts, power bills that showed 3 times the usual consumption, and even estimates for fixing the walls. Emma had marked with markers. I put a thorough letter on the kitchen counter. I wrote to Mike and Jessica, "I'll be gone by the time you read this. I have notified the landlord that I will not be renewing my lease, which expires in 2 weeks. Next Tuesday, the utilities will be cut off. Until then, you need to make fresh plans. Everything is documented by me. You destroyed my workstation. You went shopping while pretending to be poor, and you didn't look for a job. The landlord and, if required, the police will be notified if you try to harass me or do any damage to the flat. You put the drafting table away. I've transferred it to my new location. And all the other things I own. You own what's left, including accountability for your own life." I was aware that within hours of their return, there would be radioactive fallout. There were so many texts on my phone. "How could you have done this to us, Jessica?" Mike, "Very pleasant. Leaving your family behind." Jessica, "The children are in tears. Are you content now?" Mike, "Tell us where you relocated, please." Jessica, "Mom would be really embarrassed by you." I banned their social media accounts after blocking their phone numbers. The flying monkeys came next. They had enlisted mutual acquaintances to accuse me. It seemed like a haven in my new flat. I put up a sign of my regained freedom in my repaired workplace. It was my landlord who called the next morning. He seemed delighted as he replied, "Your stepsister tried to claim tenants' rights. I informed her that she must leave before the utilities are cut off and that uninvited residents have no rights." What was her reaction to that? About what you would anticipate? Much sobbing about children who are homeless and family loyalty. She ought to have considered that before exploiting yours, I informed her. The guilt trips may have worked in the past, but now that I'm sitting in my quiet new house, my workstation is back to normal. I was so relieved. Family stations relayed the news of their response. They had accused everyone of fabricating a story about my brutality and treachery, how I had suddenly deserted them, traumatized their children, and left them destitute. However, there were flaws in their story, large ones. My Aunt Susan questioned them. Why did Jessica post about her weekly spa days if you were so desperate? During job interviews, why was Mike checking in at sports bars? They were deceived by their social media histories. They videotaped 3 months of going on shopping trips, going to salons and having lengthy meals while living rent-free in my flat while claiming poverty. From Florida, my ex-stepfather called. Jessica claims that you abruptly ejected them. Is what he stated true? Look over the messages they sent me once they moved in. It was intended to be a short-term measure while they recovered. They hadn't even searched for flats 3 months later. He sighed. It sounds like Jessica. She's always relied on other people to take care of her issues. That's how her mother and I spoiled her. The utilities were scheduled to be terminated 2 days prior. At last, reality set in. My landlord stated that they had begun packing, but not before Jessica made one more attempt at deceit. She promised to cover future rent, he informed me. I informed her that I had already arranged for new renters, those who have never experienced foreclosure. When they originally needed a place to stay, Mike's parents had been tough to live with, but they ended up moving in with them. It's funny how opportunities present themselves when you're at a loss. But the stillness was the finest retaliation. The composition, the freedom to live without continual demands and guilt trips, to work uninterrupted, and to maintain an orderly workspace. My company bounced back fast. It turns out that not being regarded as free childcare makes it simpler to achieve deadlines. My client saw an improvement in my work, which resulted in recommendations and additional contracts. Through a common acquaintance, Jessica tried one more time to get in touch with me a week after they moved out. She claims that ultimately they would have sought a place of their own. According to the buddy, all you had to do was be understanding and patient. I said that I had been patient for 3 months. When they confiscated my workplace without my consent, understanding completely vanished. She added that they could soon want lodging once more. Regarding their living situation, Mike's parents are being challenging. 6 months after my epic escape, I blocked that friend to portion 3, segment 1, 600 words. My company was doing really well. With my professional workplace restored and the tranquility of my new flat, I was able to increase my prices and take on additional customers. In order to manage my increasing workload, I had even engaged a virtual assistant. Although Jessica and Mike were still able to make their presence felt, the family turmoil had largely subsided. They had relocated 3 more times from Mike's parents to progressively worse rental properties, each time complaining about unjust landlords or antagonistic neighbors. It seems that others were less understanding of their entitled behavior than I had been. I was informed by my Aunt Susan about their efforts to track out their next victim. Their notoriety preceded them, despite their attempts to stay with different family members. Nobody wanted to take the chance of being their next free guest. In fact, Jessica dared to propose that we move in together. Susan informed me as we were having coffee, claimed to have learnt the importance of respecting limits. That's precisely what she told you, I reminded her. At least the children had discovered some security. Jessica and Mike only had them on the weekends, but Mike's parents had insisted on having them stay during the week so they could continue attending their school. Although it wasn't perfect, it was still preferable than the disorder they had been experiencing. My new flat turned out to be all I had hoped it would be. I established a functional home office with a specific area for client meetings. My workspace remained tidy. Demands for last-minute childcare kept my kitchen tidy and disturbed my work. Jessica sent me an unexpected email one morning. I've been thinking a lot lately. When we remained with you, we might not have handled things as well as we might have. Even if we were going through a difficult moment, that doesn't justify taking advantage of us. Now I see that. You are missed by the children. Would you be open to getting together for coffee? It was the closest she would ever get to apologizing to me. However, there was something strange about the time. I gave Mike's mother, who had turned into an unexpected ally, a call. She affirmed, "Oh, they were just evicted again. Jessica has been phoning people in an attempt to get lodging." "Avoid falling for that," I replied with a brief letter. "I'm happy you've acquired this viewpoint. I hope it influences your future decision-making. However, I have no interest in meeting at this time," she responded in a matter of minutes. "We've come a long way and have discovered this wonderful flat. However, we require assistance with the deposit. You can repay a little loan immediately for the benefit of the children." It was there, the true cause of the abrupt apologies. I didn't even try to answer. A customer who discovered me via my updated portfolio website gave me a sizable design assignment later that week. The cash would be equivalent to the 3 months' rent from my previous flat, which I had used to help Jessica's family while they were living with me. I was filled with thankfulness for having the strength to break out, as I sat at my immaculate drafting table and watched the sunset through my office window. Sometimes having the guts to refuse toxic family members is the best present you can offer yourself. There was yet another round of family strife during my first Christmas season in my new flat. Mike and Jessica had planned a campaign to make me the bad guy at all the family get-togethers, conveniently neglecting to address their own behavior. However, it's Christmas. Mary, my aunt, begged, "Is it not possible to forgive them? Their lesson has been learnt." Had they? Despite both of them finally having employment, Mike's mother claims that they were just ordered to vacate their most recent flat due to non-payment of rent. Jessica worked part-time at a boutique, but she spent the most of her earnings on keeping up her looks. Mike had landed a job at a car dealership, but he preferred to socialize with his coworkers than making sales. According to Mike's mother, they continue to live beyond their means: designer clothing, pricey dining establishments, trips to the salon. Then, when the rents rise, they complain about poverty. The children are stable with us during the week at least. I turned down the Christmas meal with the family. Instead, I decided to throw a little party for the family members who had helped me at my new home. Susan, my aunt, brought her renowned pie. My ex-stepfather even traveled down from Florida for a little visit, and Mike's mother arrived with the kids. "A house ought to feel like this," Susan said as she observed my neat workspace. Calm, courteous, as if an entitlement tornado had swept over. The children had moved away from the pandemonium of their parents. They had improved their routines. Tyler had done well in school, and Emma had stopped drawing on walls. They still had a lot of energy, but instead of ruining other people's space, they were using it for constructive purposes. According to Mike's mother, having them during the week has had a significant impact. They require structure rather than unrelenting chaos. My company kept expanding. I transformed the little eating nook in the flat into a space for client meetings, complete with a polished backdrop for video conferences. No more Jessica interrupting meetings or kids yelling in the background. Jessica tried to get back in touch on the Friday before Christmas. "Your Christmas cards were produced by the children. We would be delighted to drop them off. Perhaps pay us a little visit. We can get up to speed. Bring up the past. I've been thinking about it a lot. I was the first to know the script." An innocent-seeming visit. A depressing account of their present living circumstances follows. And lastly, the request. Only a brief visit, until they discovered something else. "Just because we are related," I said. "You can mail the cards. My address is still the same." She said, "Don't be like that. Christmas is here. Families ought to be together. We've altered a great deal." "You'll see." And we discovered this incredible flat. However, the deposit is a little excessive. The rest I didn't care to read. Rather, the first concentrated on wrapping gifts for the children, which I would then mail to Mike's parents. There, kids could have a secure Christmas without worrying about where they'll live the next month or about their parents taking advantage of family members. Mike's mother called me unexpectedly a year after I had escaped. Finally, Mike and Jessica had found an affordable flat in a little complex across town. Just a simple 2-bedroom flat that fits their actual budget, with no extras or a prime location. At last, the evictions caught up with them, she clarified. They were forced to live within their means since they could not find a nice apartment to rent. Sometimes the only way to learn is to strike bottom. During the week, the children continued to spend time with their grandparents, as arranged by family court. Every now and again, they came to my new flat, either with their grandma or without Jessica and Mike. During one visit, Emma remarked that Aunt Natalie's home was neat and quite quiet. Their grandma pointedly emphasized that this is because she respects other people's space and takes good care of her belongings. The size of my company had doubled. I had a number of high-profile organizations on my client list, and I had employed 2 remote designers to help with the burden. I had been able to concentrate on my development because of the stability and security of my new existence, rather than attempting to control chaos all the time. Jessica continued to sometimes try to get in touch with me, mainly when they needed money, but her communications were no longer effective. I had discovered that family is neither a weapon nor a justification for misbehavior. During his most recent visit, my ex-stepfather summed it up well. Allowing family members to suffer the repercussions of their own behavior is sometimes the most kind thing you can do for them. You didn't leave them behind, you just stopped giving them permission. When my Aunt Susan came to visit, she saw that the picture pegs on the wall of my living room were empty. After relocating, I removed the family portraits since I didn't want to be reminded of that hectic period every day. Now you may write your own tale on these walls, she recommended. Your accomplishments, your designs, your tranquil new existence. She was correct. I started making a gallery the next day, along with wall-framed images of my finest designs, professional accolades I had received, and a few chosen pictures of the family members who had supported me. Jessica messaged me right away after seeing the pictures on my social media accounts. "It's good to see that you have photographs posted. We ought to get a fresh family portrait for your wall. Perhaps at your house for supper." She was so persistent that I had to chuckle. She was still looking for a way to get back in. But in the end, I had complete control over how I decorated my mental and physical walls. I received a Christmas card from Mike's mom that included a recent picture of the children. They appeared content and at ease. Tyler was participating in Little League Baseball, while Emma had enrolled in a children's painting class. In the stability, they were flourishing. Their grandparents demonstrated how important boundaries and structure might be. My new flat was more than simply a place to live. It served as evidence of what may happen when you quit letting other people's chaos ruin your tranquility. Every neatly arranged drawer, peaceful morning, and fruitful client meeting served as a reminder that sometimes your own family is the one you need to safeguard the most. Story 4. Without consulting me, my parents gave my sister free use of my investment property. Mom claimed she was having trouble. Not like you, after not paying rent for 6 months. They eventually realized why I wasn't concerned after seeing a letter from the bank. She requires a new beginning. You must understand, Emma. The phone crackled with my mother's voice, a combination of begging and that familiar tone of guilt-tripping that I've come to know. As I tried to take in what she had just told me, I stood in my Manhattan office and gazed out at the skyline. It seems that without even asking me, my parents allowed my sister Jessica to reside in my investment home for free. Furthermore, he didn't consider asking me first. My hand grabbed the phone tighter, but I spoke steadily. "Mom, it's my property. I used my own funds to purchase it." "Yes, but following her divorce, Jessica is going through a really tough period. There is nowhere else for her to go. And your career in finance in New York is doing great. The property isn't even used by you." I closed my eyes and softly counted to 10. I put a lot of effort into developing my job as an investment banker at the age of 32, saving every cent to make real estate investments. My first significant investment property was a Chicago townhouse that my sister had reportedly moved into. I had meticulously restored it and was getting ready to rent it out at market value. "Besides, she's family," my mother said. "Family supports family. Family supports family." Those words were not very ironic. Me? When I was working 3 jobs and suffering through college, while Jessica drank her way through her trust fund? Where was this family-first mentality? For what duration has she been residing there? I feared the response as I asked. "Well, only a few days. Last weekend, she moved in. The spare key was given to her by your father. For emergencies, you departed with us." He did, of course. My jobless sister is now permanently installed in my investment property with the emergency key I trusted them with. And when precisely were you intending to inform me? Now, honey, we're informing you. Jessica is delighted there as well. She has previously mentioned redecorating a few rooms to make them more light-filled. I felt sick to my stomach. "What is she?" "Oh, nothing significant. Only a few accent walls." You are aware of her skill in interior design. Do you recall her desire to become a decorator? I did recall. Similar to how I recalled her stages as a yoga instructor, a photographer, and an organic juice bar. All costly endeavors that ultimately failed, all financed by our parents. She can't just, "Mom." "Please, Emma. My mom cut me off. Just help your sister once, please. She is a member of the family." I inhaled deeply once again, my mind already working out a strategy. "She is family, Mom, you're correct. I knew you'd understand, my love. The reasonable one has always been you," I muttered as I accessed my financial information on my laptop. I must leave now. Meeting with a client. I hung up and leaned back in my chair with a slight smile on my face. My family was unaware that, ever since Jessica's divorce, I had been planning for something similar for months. Her tendency of getting back on her feet through family bailouts is something I would observe. I had witnessed how my parents looked at my accomplishments, security, and possessions. I took out a big binder titled Chicago Property from my bottom desk drawer. I had prepared some emergency paperwork with my lawyer 6 months prior, and they were inside. Property rules, legal notifications, and above all, the documentation pertaining to the property's new status as a component of my company assets. The townhouse was no longer solely in my name, you see. My LLC now owned it, and there were stringent legal requirements for its usage and occupancy. According to corporate property regulations, any unapproved home might be deemed trespassing. I put it up this way, especially to guard against crises in the family. Jessica texted me, and my phone buzzed. I appreciate you allowing me to crash at your house. Ito, you're the greatest big sister ever. Are you okay with me redesigning the kitchen cabinets? I didn't reply since the current ones are so outdated. Rather, I grabbed my office phone and called my attorney. Emma here, Sarah. Do you recall the situation we anticipated with the Chicago property? It's taking place. Yes, just as we had anticipated. Could you begin the procedure? Sarah and I went over the paperwork for the next hour, starting everything. Notification would be sent to the property management firm. The corporate supervision procedures would be triggered, and formal notices would be prepared. How about your parents? Sarah inquired. When they understand what's going on, they won't be pleased. They won't find out until it's too late, I said. Furthermore, when they distributed my spare key without my consent, they forfeited all right to an opinion. I received an email from Jessica that made my computer ping. This one includes pictures of the furnishings she intended to purchase for her new home using our parents' credit card. Definitely. For what length of time do you wish to wait before starting the procedure? Sarah inquired. I reflected on all the occasions I had seen Jessica use the kindness of our parents. They had always expected me to be understanding, accommodating, and giving in. Since family supports family, let's wait half a year. I gave them enough time to believe they got away with it. Enough time for Jessica to truly get settled. It will be long enough for everyone to forget who owns it. Then, even if you are family, we remind them of the same reason they shouldn't steal what isn't theirs. For the following several weeks, I watched from a distance as Jessica posted updates about her new life on social media. She was there, sharing pictures of the antique chandelier she had put in the dining room without anyone's consent. Every picture, post, and change to my property was meticulously kept and recorded, as were the Instagram posts about her new beginning and how the cosmos may offer everything at times. Every time they phoned, my parents would dance around the topic of the home, complimenting Jessica on her initiative and her efforts to spruce it up. Rent, utilities, and the fact that they had effectively handed away my property without my permission were never brought up by them. Jessica's condition has significantly improved. On one conversation, my mother cried uncontrollably, "Thanks to you, honey, she's truly discovering who she is. What a wonderful sister you are." While I was uploading more unapproved renovation images to my paperwork file, I produced indeterminate noises. The evidence was piling up in the folder. My mother reluctantly added, "I was wondering if you might consider putting the utilities in her name just to help her establish some credit after the divorce." This was evidence that would become crucial in precisely 5 months and 3 weeks. Additionally, it's possible that she was considering buying a dog. Pets are welcome in the building, correct? I took a moment to giggle quietly while muting my phone. "Well, I have to go, Mom." Large gathering. "Later, we may discuss this." My property management business confirmed in an email that evening that they had recorded every modification made to the property since Jessica's unlawful occupation started. Every change and infraction of the corporate property agreements is painstakingly documented and dated. Jessica sent me another text, and my phone buzzed. "Hello, sister. Just a quick query. Can I advertise one of the available rooms to earn a little more money while I'm looking for a job?" I checked my calendar and added the wording to my documentation file. There are 5 months and 2 weeks left. The property was no longer the only factor in this. This has to do with respect, setting limits, and letting my family know that I wasn't their personal safety net just because I was successful. Allowing family members to suffer the repercussions of their conduct is sometimes the most kind thing you can do for them. And there would be repercussions, in fact, in 5 months and 2 weeks. I received my property management company's final report 5 months into Jessica's new beginning. Over $23,000 in unauthorized renovations, several building code violations from her amateur modifications, and most importantly, proof of the illicit air operation she had been doing out of my spare rooms were all outlined in the record. I sat in my office going over the documents and pictures. My meticulously restored investment house was entirely transformed by Jessica into what she referred to as her bohemian fantasy room. The tasteful gray walls were now dotted with bright hues. The expensive appliances I had installed had been swapped out with less expensive ones. Her social media accounts indicated that she had sold the originals online. Additionally, the well-preserved hardwood floors were now covered in what she described as creative epoxy patterns. Emma sent me another text message, and my phone buzzed. The house now looks so beautiful that you won't believe it. I'm considering launching a blog about house remodeling. This may become my new profession. I checked the calendar and added the message to my documentation file. The corporate audit I had planned is in 2 weeks. It took my family 2 weeks to discover the consequences of mistaking compassion for weakness. Regarding this timing, are you certain? During our last review meeting, Sarah inquired. The day after the audit is your sister's birthday celebration. Novices leave, recalling the invitation I had gotten. I grinned. Jessica was organizing a big birthday party at my place that doubled as a housewarming. Naturally, with our parents' help, she had already engaged caterers and invited 50 people. The timing is ideal, I said. Let them rejoice. It will increase the effect of the notifications. My mother contacted Emma the day before the audit. You're attending Jessica's party tomorrow, honey? She has worked so hard on the house. Everyone is eager to see her makeover of the place. Actually, tomorrow I'm in Chicago on business, Mom. I will visit. Oh, so lovely. Jessica will be overjoyed. She is often stating that she wishes you were more present to observe how she turned your former investment property into a genuine residence. My former investment property, like I'd left it behind. And by claiming it, Jessica was helping me out. By the way, your father and I have been considering it because Jessica has done so much to make it better. My mother continued. Perhaps we ought to talk about giving her the deed. In New York, you're doing great, and this would help her make a name for herself. I tightened my hold on my phone. Mom, we can talk about everything tomorrow. I packed many copies of the corporate audit results, legal notifications, and records of all unlawful changes and violations in my briefcase, and caught a flight to Chicago that evening. I also produced evidence of Jessica's internet revenue from renting out rooms in a house she didn't own, as well as police records from neighbors who had complained about her airman visitors. I got at the property early for the formal corporate inspection on the morning of Jessica's party. In addition to my lawyer and the property management team, a qualified contractor had already arrived to inspect the unauthorized alterations, just the infractions of the construction code. Whistling, the contractor went over the modifications. In the kitchen, the electrical work is not up to code. The epoxy floors lacked adequate sealing, and let's not even talk about the weight-bearing wall she took down to make room. After recording everything, I looked at my watch. The celebration is 3 hours away. My phone rang with a message from Jessica just as I was expecting it to. You're where? I need assistance putting up the details now that the caterers have arrived. Watch what I accomplished with your former home office. Now, it's a meditation space with a water feature. My lawyer put the note to our file when I emailed it to him. She affirmed that the notices are prepared. Do you want us to serve them at the celebration or after? My mother's casual offer to transfer the deed about Jessica's allowed changes to my home got my attention. About 6 months of seeing them take advantage of my success while I decided, let them rejoice first. Allow them to fully display all of the work they have done on my property. We will then reveal to them the true owner of this mansion. And it's no longer just me. At 4, the visitors began to arrive. As a happy homeowner, Jessica greeted everyone, and I observed from my car. As she offered tours, I could see my parents grinning through the windows, likely boasting about all the changes she had made. At exactly 5:30, as the celebration was in full flow, the formal notices were sent by my property management staff. I fixed my jacket, got out of my car, and headed toward the house I had purchased. After years of diligence and meticulous preparation, it's time to tell my family that sometimes the lessons you believed would be free end up costing the most. Emma! When I went in, Jessica shrieked and rushed to give me a hug. At last, you're here! The home is wonderful, isn't it? With it, I've accomplished a lot. My parents' faces lit up behind her. The group of folks who were following me with clipboards and papers in hand had gone unnoticed. Yes, I answered coolly. Let's discuss the specifics of what you did to my property. When my lawyer came forward with notices in hand, the room became silent. When Jessica finally registered the official-looking paperwork that were put on her cycled coffee table, her champagne glass froze halfway to her lips. Getting even isn't always the greatest form of retaliation. It's about refusing to back down and allowing people to pay for their deeds. And I knew this was only the beginning as I saw my family's faces light up with knowledge. The celebration was enveloped in a deafening hush. As Jessica lifted the top document from the stack, her immaculately manicured palm shook. What? What is this? Her gaze swept across the formal letterhead as she stuttered. Sarah, my attorney, came forward. The legal owner of this property, Nyam Holdings, EJC Holdings, LLC, has formally issued a notice of unlawful occupation and property infractions. My dad stepped in and cut me off. What's going on, Emma? Even when the partygoers began talking to one another, I remained calm. My company is called FM Holdings, Dad. About 6 months ago, when you handed Jessica my emergency key, the property was moved there. My mom's face became white. However, it's only a technical pity, though, isn't it? You still own this house. No, Mother, this property belongs to the company and is governed by business policies. Regulations that, throughout the previous 6 months, have been broken on several occasions. Jessica's boyfriend attempted to interrupt, claiming to be a real estate mogul whom she had met at a yoga retreat. Come on, it's family business. With all this business jargon, you can't be serious. Sarah took out another piece of paper. We're being serious, really. Unauthorized structural alterations, many building code infractions, and most importantly, illegal subletting through air have all been recorded. The audience became more subdued. The champagne glass that Jessica was holding broke on the epoxy-covered floor. She had been quite proud. She insisted that those were only temporary visitors. Overnight guests are friends. Friends who used your air listing to pay $200 each night. I pulled up screenshots on my phone and requested in a low voice. The one in which you claim ownership of this corporate property. My dad took a step forward, his cheeks flushed. Listen up, Emma. Your sister need assistance. What exactly were we? Dad? Merely giving away items that weren't yours. Just permitting unapproved improvements that have jeopardized the structural soundness of the structure. Simply averting your gaze. Jessica operated an illicit rental company at this time. The contractor who had previously inspected the premises came forward. Do you want me to go over the specific code infractions we discovered? MAAM? Jessica started crying. This is unfair. I improved this location. Take a look at how lovely everything has become. I examined her upgrades, including the low-bearing wall that had been removed, the shoddy epoxy flooring, and the amateur electrical work. Better. You have caused infractions and damage worth thousands of dollars, which must be fixed. Thousands, my mom muttered. Sarah gave a nod. Before we deal with the unlawful rental revenue, the baseline estimate for getting the property back to code is about $45. Oh. My dad's face became purple instead of red. This is absurd. You cannot treat your own sister in this manner. I can, in fact, and I'm not doing anything about it. These are only the results of what she did, actions that you made possible. The property manager came forward, carrying further documents. Every unlawful rental transaction, infraction, and unauthorized modification is documented. Additionally, we have proof that the original appliances and fixtures were offered for sale online. Anger replaced the tears in Jessica's eyes. I swapped out those unsightly appliances for nicer ones. Those unsightly equipment were worth more than $15,000 sand, were of commercial quality. Appliances, I quietly responded. You were not authorized to sell. My mom took hold of my arm. Please, Emma. This is something that our family can resolve. All this legal bullshit is unnecessary. I took her hand away gently. Mom, that's where you're mistaken. As soon as you and your father agreed to give up stuff that wasn't yours, this ceased to be a family issue. Jessica's decision to handle my investment as if it were her own remodeling project. After the divorce, Jessica lamented, but I needed a fresh start. You are not entitled to my property because of your new beginning. I interrupted her. You don't have the right to operate an unlawful rental company, sell items that aren't yours, or make unauthorized adjustments after your divorce. Half-empty drinks and dishes of unfinished food were left behind as the partygoers quietly filed out. The majority of Jessica's alleged pals had vanished, as had her boyfriend. Sarah cleared her throat. Our records show that Miss Jessica Harrison has illegally rented out company property for brief periods of time, earning about $22,000. It will be necessary to repay this revenue as well as the money received from the sale of company assets. Jessica flopped down on her retro-style couch. That's not the type of money I have. I used it to make this site better, getting better. I chuckled quietly. You intend to undo all of the changes you made without authorization. Every building code infraction and structural change made without permits. Everything is recorded. And everything needs to be fixed. My dad made one final attempt. Emma, be sensible. What are your expectations for your sister? What is her intended destination? I steadily looked into his eyes. Dad, that's not my problem. As if giving it away wasn't your property. Jessica has precisely 30 days to leave the property and start paying back the damages and unlawful rental income. 30 days. My mom let out a gasp. However, everything she owns is here. Here, she has established a life. She made a living off of stolen goods. Sarah spoke up. It's a politeness to provide 30 days. We might demand an immediate evacuation given the severity of the offenses. Jessica sprang to her feet. This is not possible. Mom! Dad! She can't do this! Tell her! I finally realized my parents had no power here as I watched them exchange helpless looks. Their apathetic treatment of my property rights. They are entitled to believe that Jessica's needs came before mine. Everything around them was falling apart. The property will be put back to how it was before. I went on peacefully. Jessica, you will be liable for any expenses that are not paid for by the return of the legitimate rental income. Indeed, if required, we will take legal action. Legal action? You would sue your own sister, my mother said. Do you mean the way you attempted to coerce me into giving her the deed? I inquired. Yes, Mother. Earlier, I heard your idea. Think about this as my answer. Final copies of the novices were distributed by the property management. Our legal department should now be the source of any correspondence pertaining to this issue. Legal action will be taken right away for any efforts to continue renting the property without permission or make additional modifications. I started to walk away, then stopped. Oh, and Jessica, happy birthday. Think of this as a wake-up call. Lessons we never wanted to learn can sometimes be the greatest gifts. I heard my father's irate mumbling, my mother's entreaties, and Jessica's weeping as I left the house, my home. But I felt calm for the first time in months. Being the villain and someone else's tale is sometimes the price you pay for standing your ground. However, I would much rather be the villain than the doormat. They attempted to get me to allow them to call me unkind, allow them to portray me as the cold-hearted corporate sister who refused to assist family. I was aware of the reality. Allowing family members to suffer the repercussions of their conduct is sometimes the most kind thing you can do for them. I stood in my beautifully renovated Chicago property 6 months after Jessica's tragic birthday party, taking stock of the changes. The exquisite gray of the walls had returned. New commercial-grade appliances shone in the kitchen, and the load-bearing wall had been correctly restored. Every code violation had been fixed. Every repair had been recorded, and every evidence of Jessica's advancements had been removed. The rehabilitation ended up costing $67,000, which was a lot more than the original estimate. Jessica had consented to a payback plan, using her share of our grandparents' legacy to cover the damages and unlawful rental revenue once contractors, after many talks through our lawyers, discovered the entire extent of the damage. She texted me, the first direct message we've exchanged in months, and my phone rang. Can we have a face-to-face conversation? Just sisters, no attorneys, no drama. Something had changed in me during the last 2 months, but I still thought about ignoring it. Coffee at 10 tomorrow, the business across from my house. The following morning, I nearly didn't recognize my sister when I got to the coffee shop. The easygoing attitude and bohemian attire have vanished. Rather, Jessica sat in business casual, appearing professional with a laptop open in front of her. As I sat down, she whispered softly, "Thanks for meeting me. I've been thinking a lot lately." Oh. I noted the spreadsheets on her screen while maintaining a neutral tone. "You are correct," she told me, which surprised me in every way. I exploited it. "You were successful, so I assumed that. I had a claim to your property as you were my sister. What you constructed was not respected by me." I took a drink of my coffee, awaiting. "These past few months have been instructive," she added. "Relocating to live with parents, having to budget and dealing with actual repercussions." She chuckled quietly. "I'm not as defenseless as everyone believed, it turns out." She swiveled her laptop in my direction. A business plan for a reputable home staging firm was displayed on the screen. "Do you recall my previous discussions regarding interior design? This time, though, I'm doing it correctly, completing classes, earning a certification, and creating a solid business plan. No giveaways, no shortcuts. What about the money?" With real curiosity, I inquired. "I'm starting off small and developing a portfolio using my existing talents. I'll apply for a legitimate business loan when I've established my worth. Stop depending on family funds." Or she paused. "Stealing anything that isn't mine." I saw my sister for the first time in years. I actually saw her. The person she might be when she really tried, not the conceited lady who had occupied my land. She said, "Mom and Dad aren't happy. In an attempt to shame you into giving in, they wanted me to oppose the repayment arrangement, but I refused. We all needed this wake-up call, even myself." She took a check out. "I wanted to give you one in person, to show you that I mean it, even though I know this is the first installment that is formally going through the attorneys." I glanced at my sister and then at the check. "Don't lose it." Finally, I said. "Instead, apply it to your certification classes. The repayment plan remains the same," but her eyes widened. "But this one payment," I explained. "Think of it as a future investment, this time, a real one." Her eyes filled with tears. But these weren't the manipulative tears I was used to. "I'm really sorry, Emma. For everything. I am aware." We sat in comfortable silence for a bit before she spoke again. "To help with the repairs, Dad sold his boat. He said that because he handed away your key, this is the least he can do. Additionally, Mom is discussing her enabling habits with a therapist." I arched an eyebrow. "This was not what was expecting," Jessica said. "Your actions didn't just wake me up. They forced us all to examine our tendencies and exploitative behaviors. How we used familial relationships as justification." As she prepared to depart for her certification class, she grabbed her belongings. "I'm not pleading for pardon just yet. I want you to know that you made the correct decision, even though I know I have to earn it. Even if, at the time, it seemed harsh. What did you do? None of us are brave enough to do it. The cycle was broken by you." I walked back to my property after she departed. Everything that had been repaired was highlighted by the afternoon sun that came through the windows. Perhaps, though, I was aware that more than just the property had been corrected. My father sent me an email that evening. Apologies and amends was the subject line. "Emma, please," it started. "Along with some other things, I'm selling my yacht. I need to put this right, not because Jessica asked me to. I abused your confidence by giving away your key, and then I had the gall to claim that I was defending it. Your father need to treat you better." I noted how unusual it seemed from his typical defensive reactions and preserved the email. It seems that making people face the repercussions of their conduct may bring about change. My property manager emailed the final renovation images the following day. I came to a startling realization as I looked at them. It had been more than just safeguarding my investment. It had included setting limits, requesting deference, and making the difficult decision to put justice ahead of short-term harmony. Once more, the property was genuinely mine. More significantly, though, my family was beginning to value not only my property but also my autonomy. The chance to mature is perhaps the greatest gift you can give your family. Sometimes the strongest foundations are not built on unending generosity, but rather on solid boundaries and earned respect, even if that opportunity is surrounded by legal notifications and difficult lessons. I grinned as I stood on my renovated property. The walls were strengthened rather than merely mended. I was, too. Story 5. Gray clouds covered the Chicago sky, and the pavement was pounded by an unusually cold rain. In the La Piazza kitchen, Olivia Brown was wiping perspiration from her forehead while using her hands to make one last check of the special menu for today. Commonplace materials were turned into artistic creations. She had developed the skill over the course of her 10-year career as a chef, but it was also a natural talent. Olivia, is the table 9 risotto ready? The kitchen reverberated with the voice of Chef Marco. Yes, Olivia said, hurriedly putting the finishing touches on. Just another minute. Reservations were difficult to come by at La Piazza, one of the most well-known Italian eateries in the area, where she worked as sous chef. Olivia had been saving money for her own restaurant in Chicago for 10 years. In just a few more months, she had saved a sizable sum of $150,000 by gradually deducting special catering jobs from her monthly salary and occasionally working late into the night. She would eventually be able to open her own place after reaching her goal amount. Olivia, you did another fantastic job tonight. After closing, Marco gave her a gentle pat on the shoulder. When you finally get out on your own, I'll be sad. Olivia grinned. That's still a little ways off. When she returned to her apartment, Olivia's smartphone rang. The screen displayed Mom. She hesitated slightly before answering. Olivia, can you come for dinner tomorrow? I have something important to tell you. Martha's voice had an unusual excitement to it. I can come since it's my day off. Did something happen? It's about Brittany. Wonderful news. Of course it's about Brittany. Olivia thought her 27-year-old sister had always been the center of their parents' attention. Brittany was beautiful and sociable, fitting perfectly into the mold of the perfect daughter her parents had always wanted. Meanwhile, Olivia had chosen what they considered an unstable career in cooking, disappointing their expectations. At least, that's how her parents seemed to feel. The next day, Olivia rang the doorbell at her parents' house. Her father, George, opened the door. Hey, Olivia. He greeted her flatly before leading her to the living room. In the living room, Martha and Brittany were sitting on the sofa looking at something and laughing together. A large diamond ring sparkled on Brittany's finger. Olivia. Brittany jumped up and rushed to her sister, thrusting out her left hand. Look, Jason proposed. Brittany's fiancé, Jason Ellis, was the son of one of Chicago's wealthiest real estate families. They had met a year ago, and Brittany had proudly flaunted their relationship in front of her parents. Congratulations. Olivia offered her sincere blessing. There was no reason not to wish her sister happiness. The wedding is in 6 months, Brittany continued excitedly. The Ellis family wants a formal wedding. We've already booked the venue. It's the most beautiful hotel in Chicago. That's wonderful, Olivia replied, suddenly remembering her bank balance. She was so close to achieving her dream. Throughout dinner, the conversation focused entirely on Brittany's wedding dress, the guest list, the flower arrangements and plans for the families to meet. Olivia nodded occasionally, but her thoughts drifted to her restaurant plans. So Olivia, her father's voice, suddenly interrupted her daydreaming. We're meeting the Ellis family next Saturday. You'll be there, right? Of course, Olivia answered. Where will it be? At La Piazza, Martha answered. When Brittany told Jason's parents that her sister worked there, they stated they'd love to dine there. William Ellis, in particular, is quite the cuisine aficionado and was fascinated. Olivia felt both astonished and pushed. She hadn't expecting such powerful individuals to visit her job, but it was also a fantastic occasion to exhibit her talents. On the night of the family gathering, in addition to her customary chores, Olivia took great care with the Ellis family's table. Each dish she made prompted exclamations of excitement when presented toward the conclusion of the dinner. A silver-haired gentleman entered in the kitchen. "May I talk with the chef?" he asked. Marco grinned and invited Olivia over. "Olivia, you have a guest. Thank you for a delicious supper." The gentleman offered his hand. "I'm William Ellis, shortly to be your sister's father-in-law." Despite her apprehension, Olivia responded professionally. "I'm glad you enjoyed it." "I liked it." With a genuine face, William added, "I was moved. That ravioli in particular. It was an artistic creation. You have a real skill." Brittany was standing there as well, listening to her sister and her future father-in-law's chat. Over the following few weeks, Olivia's fleeting expression of discontent was not missed. William frequently came to La Piazza to savor Olivia's cuisine. Occasionally, he would visit the kitchen to discuss food with her. In addition to being rich, William was a real gourmet and one of the few individuals who could relate to Olivia's enthusiasm. Olivia was doing her weekly routine of checking her bank account on her laptop while sipping coffee one morning. She almost dropped her coffee cup when she saw the figures on the screen. There must be a mistake here. The numbers remained unchanged despite her repeated blinks and screen refreshes. Over a 10-year period, she had saved $150,000, but now she only had $327 left. She contacted the bank with shaking hands, and the transaction history was displayed. 2 weeks ago, a sizable withdrawal was made. Her parents' names had been used. "No, this is incorrect." Olivia begged the bank employee to do so. "This withdrawal was not authorized by me. Regretfully, your account is a shared one. Legally, your parents are able to take money out." Olivia contacted her parents in uncertainty and rage after hanging up. "Where's my savings, Dad?" Olivia's voice trembled. George Brown's voice on the other end was very quiet. "Oh, Brittany's wedding was held there." "What?" Olivia was shocked by what she heard. "You took my money and didn't ask. In your name, we opened the account. In case of an emergency, we retained it as a joint account. The wedding of Brittany is a significant family occasion." There was no remorse in George's voice. It was the same with Martha, who also called. "This union is a member of the Ellis family. Their status must be reflected in the ceremony. You must comprehend." Olivia couldn't speak. Her dreams vanished in an instant after 10 years of hard work, innumerable extra hours, and working holidays. She responded icily, "I'm coming over right now," and hung up. Olivia was standing at her parents' front door half an hour later. Her mom opened it. Olivia relaxed. Martha tried to calm her daughter's irate expression by saying, "This is for family." Brittany, George, and her father were seated on the sofa in the living room. Brittany was grinning at them while clutching brochures for wedding venues. "Have you done anything?" Unable to control her rage, Olivia broke down in tears. "I frantically saved the money for a decade. I intended to use it to create my own restaurant." George rose and turned to face his daughter. "Olivia, please relax. Families are meant to support one another." "Support one another?" Olivia shot back incredulously. "You didn't even get my permission before spending all of my life savings." Glancing up from her brochure, Brittany regarded her sister icily. "Be less theatrical. The best hotel in Chicago will host my wedding. The Ellises anticipate it. What am I supposed to do with that?" "I don't care about your dumb dream," Brittany said. "It's more essential that I'm happy. As my sister, you ought to stand by me." Olivia was taken aback when her sister called her fantasy foolish. Olivia's voice was shaking as she said, "Give it back. Return my money. It's already been used up," George insisted. "Everything has been contracted, including the hotel deposit, the dress, the caterers, and the flowers. How did you accomplish this?" Olivia's eyes filled with tears. "I live it. The funds I had set up for the future. Make a sacrifice for your loved ones," George yelled abruptly. "Would you like to sabotage Brittany's opportunity? Our lives will all be better if she joins the Ellis family. For the past 10 years, I have been making sacrifices for my ambition." Olivia spoke louder. "I'm done." The tension in the room increased as the dispute got more heated. Despite her dejected appearance, Martha stood calmly beside her husband, obviously supporting him. "You are no longer a daughter of this household. if you continue to act in such a self-centered manner. George erupted with rage. Leave now! Olivia stopped. In reality, her family was planning to desert her in favor of her sister. All right, she replied softly. But keep in mind that money isn't the only factor here. You violated my confidence. As she walked out of the house, Brittany smiled triumphantly, and she didn't miss it. Olivia returned to her flat feeling hopeless. But in the midst of her grief and rage, she made a crucial choice. She pulled out her phone and looked through her notes for the number of the venue. Brittany had proudly displayed the brochure with that number on it. Can I help you, Blossom Hotel? The voice of a woman replied. Hi there? Olivia's voice was calm as she spoke. I would like to cancel the Brown Ellis wedding reservation. Please tell me your name. Brown Martha. Olivia mentioned the name of her mother. The family has made the decision to find a different location. Olivia ended the call, fell onto her bed, and sobbed for a while. She was now separated from her family in addition to having her 10-year dream dashed. Her phone rang early the following morning. Dad appeared on the screen. Olivia hesitated for a second before responding, Hello, Olivia. She had never heard the terror in George's voice before. A horrible event has occurred. The location confirmed our cancellation over the phone. How will we proceed? Olivia responded coolly. Go somewhere else. You figure it out since you spent my money. How? Are you serious, Olivia? There was a mixture of wrath and despair in her father's voice. I'm kidding. Olivia gave a mocking response. My life was wrecked by you. Have you forgotten your statement regarding me? No longer belonging to this house as a daughter? However, the wedding is barely a week away. George's tone became begging. In front of the Ellis family, we will be disgraced. I have no problem with it. Olivia hung up, then inhaled deeply. She was aware of her next course of action. She was unable to forgive her parents' treachery. However, there has to be a method to maximize this circumstance. She searched her contacts on her phone for William Ellis's number. After a recent dinner, he handed her his business card and said, If you ever need anything. Hi there. Ellis is speaking. This is Olivia Brown, Mr. Ellis. Have you got a moment? I need to talk about something crucial. Naturally, Olivia. What are you thinking about? Olivia inhaled deeply before telling him everything. Her 10 years of savings, her desire of starting a restaurant, how her parents had spent the money without getting her consent, and how she had been kicked out of the house. She was honest with him about the venue cancellation as well. The other end of the line was silent for a long time. This is unexpected. William seemed to be controlling his rage by speaking in a low voice. In fact, just yesterday, Brittany's parents requested me to pay for extra wedding-related expenses, citing unforeseen charges from their business. So your money was being used? Olivia responded regretfully. Yes. I wanted you to know the truth, but I don't want to upset Jason or your family. I appreciate your honesty. Olivia Williams stated in a lawyerly tone, This is a legal matter. Clearly, this is embezzlement. It is against the law to use the full sum without Olivia's permission, even in a joint account. I have no plans to sue them. I simply know that this cannot be disregarded. I'll speak with Jason. Olivia's doorbell rang that afternoon. As soon as she opened the door, William and Jason were standing there. Could we enter? Jason's face was sullen and gloomy. They were shown into the living area by Olivia. Let me start by saying I'm sorry. Jason started. You cannot be forgiven for what Brittany's family did to you. My father filled me in on everything. You don't have to say sorry. You didn't realize? Jason responded softly. I didn't. However, I don't wish to associate with such a family. Jason, I must reevaluate the marriage. Olivia let out a startled cry. It is not necessary for you to go that far. Brittany is. Brittany has previously met with us. William spoke up. Regretfully, she displayed no sorrow. Instead, she accused Olivia of ruining everything and placed the responsibility on you. Olivia's heart was aching. Was her sister truly that different? Or had she been like this all along? Unfortunately, she muttered. Olivia. William's attitude was solemn as he glanced at her. Keep pursuing your ambition of opening a restaurant. I invest as well. I think you have a real ability. Olivia's eyes became wide with shock. However, given the ambiguity surrounding Jason and Brittany's wedding, That's a different matter, William stated coolly. Business is business. Your culinary skills are something I wish to invest in. Olivia's phone had been buzzing nonstop during their talk. Brittany was calling. Jason responded, "You might want to answer that." Olivia picked up the phone reluctantly. "Olivia?" Brittany's cry reverberated. "Have you done anything?" According to Jason, he is reevaluating the wedding. "Everything was damaged by you. Brittany, please relax." "How can I relax?" "The location has been canceled. My fiancé is furious. You are alone to blame. Was it my fault?" Olivia's voice became icy. "My life savings were stolen by all of you. Taken? You dare?" Brittany spoke louder. "You've been self-centered all along. Have you ever taken care of your family in any way?" Olivia was crying uncontrollably. Jason, who was standing close, scowled and grabbed the phone. "This is Jason, Brittany," he spoke in a firm tone. "Bring your folks over to my place now. We must speak." After hanging up, he faced Olivia once again. "I apologize for this incident. No." Olivia dabbed at her tears. "It's me who apologizes for spoiling your great day. Nothing was ruined by you." William spoke aggressively. "We will now hold a family meeting. I also want you to come to me, Olivia." "Indeed, I have health issues," William remarked, getting to his feet. "First, the parents will be held legally accountable. Additionally, the wedding will go according to plan if you take care of the food." Olivia gave them both a startled look. "I provided food for Brittany's wedding. Your ability should not be wasted," William grinned. "Additionally, I'll put $300,000 into your eatery." $300,000? Olivia repeated incredulously. Jason said, "There are conditions. In order to reimburse the $150,000, your parents will need to sign a formal document acknowledging the theft." Olivia couldn't speak. Her goal was now within her grasp again, but it may cost her her family ties at the very least. Finally, she responded, "Let me think about it." "Naturally," William gave a nod. "But please make a decision right away. We're running out of time." Following their departure, Olivia looked out her apartment window at the city lights of Chicago sparkling against the lowering sky. Her heart was full with complicated feelings. Her phone rang once more hours later. Olivia, her mother, did it this time. Martha sounded teary-eyed. "What's going on?" Mr. Ellis had a lawyer with him. "I told them the truth, Mom," Olivia said coolly, "regarding how you stole my money without my consent. How I was thrown out of the house by you. Everything. We are family, though." "Family indeed," Olivia remarked mockingly. "It hurts so badly because of this. How can we earn your forgiveness?" Martha sobbed as she said, "According to Jason's father, everything may go according to plan provided the wedding is catered." "I am aware. They advised me to win Olivia over," Martha pleaded. "Brittany's life is about to be destroyed." Olivia took a big breath and let it out gently. "I will never be able to forgive what you guys done to me, even if I get my money back. But I'll honor my pledge to the Ellis family," she added at last. "I'll take care of the wedding catering." On the other end of the phone, Martha let out a sigh of relief. "But keep in mind," Olivia went on, "I'm not doing this for you, but for my sister. And things will never be the same between us." Olivia hung up and dialed William. She answered resolutely, "I accept your conditions." "Fantastic." William sounded content in his voice. "I've set up a better venue and will be preparing the contracts tomorrow. Thank you." "No thanks," William answered earnestly. "Olivia, you are a really gifted person, and I can't see you get treated cruelly." Olivia's life was taking an unexpected turn, but not necessarily a negative one, and she smiled for the first time in days after hanging up. The Grand Lake View, the most opulent hotel in Chicago, had a busy kitchen on the wedding day. Olivia stood in the center of the kitchen, overseeing the employees while wearing a white chef's coat. "Continue to reduce the sauce." "Indeed, that's wonderful." She gave a young sous chef a nod. Over the preceding week, Olivia had hardly slept. She had put together the team, chosen the ingredients, created the wedding meal, and conducted many trial runs. She was aware that this dinner would mark a sea change in her professional life. She'd already signed William Ellis's contract. "Olivia, it has a lovely scent." William came into the kitchen. He was fiddling with his tuxedo bow tie while wearing a pricey black suit. Thank you. Olivia smiled nervously. Your visitors will be happy, I believe. I'm positive of it. A hand was placed on her shoulder by William. Are you ready? During the reception, I would want to introduce you. Olivia did a search for me. However, Jason and Brittany are today's stars. Naturally. William grinned. However, great skill shouldn't be squandered. Believe me. When he was gone, Olivia inhaled deeply. When she got back to the kitchen, she finished the dishes. With more than 300 guests, the hotel ballroom was decked out in gold and white. The social elite of Chicago had come to celebrate the marriage of Brittany and Jason. The bride looked stunning in her white gown, and the ceremony was serious. A close observer, however, would have seen the stress in her grin. Olivia was absent at the ceremony. As the reception got underway, Olivia's dishes were taken to the tables one by one as the kitchen worked on last-minute preparations. Admiration erupted among the guests, and several attempted to approach the kitchen to show their gratitude. Olivia's parents, George and Martha, were seated at the main table, but were clearly uncomfortable. Their cheeks reddened with shame and regret. They continued to look toward the kitchen. William got to his feet and accepted the microphone once the final entree was served. We appreciate your presence on this momentous day for our son Jason and his stunning wife. Brittany, ladies and gents, the audience roared in applause. I want to express my gratitude to Brittany's sister, Olivia Brown, for the delicious dinner she made for us tonight. Olivia was invited out as William held out his hand toward the kitchen. Wearing a white chef's coat, she reluctantly made her way into the ballroom. The venue's powerful light made her stand out brightly. With the Ellis family's help, she will soon launch her own restaurant. The audience erupted in cheers and surprised shouts. Brittany's grasp on her husband's arm was a clear sign of her disapproval. She has great skill. That's demonstrated by today's meal, William added. Olivia accepted the compliment with appreciation and shame. George and Martha turned aside when she gazed at her parents. Regretfully, William's tone abruptly turned harsh. A terrible event where her parents spent her funds without her consent led to the founding of this eatery. There was silence in the room. The guests exchanged startled glances. George and Martha then appeared to slump into their seats as they grew scarlet with embarrassment before her parents. Brittany also buried her face and felt ashamed in front of her husband's relatives. But we think Olivia is talented. Next month, she will make her Restaurant Nouveau debut. Please come, everyone. Olivia grinned appreciatively, but she felt torn about telling the truth in public. Brittany and her parents had been socially humiliated by William. Following the speech, couples danced on the floor as the reception went on. Olivia stood on the balcony by herself, staring up at the sky. You're there. She turned and saw William. What a speech it was. Olivia spoke those words. But did I really need to bring up my parents in public? William let out a sigh. Secrets seldom stay, but sometimes the truth hurts. Social standing is important. Brittany and your parents learned their lesson. Why are you so helpful to me? Olivia posed a serious question. I couldn't see someone with skill be treated cruelly, William replied while glancing at the heavens. And I believed that my son's marriage would not be joyful unless justice was served. Will Brittany make Jason happy? They will have to make that decision. William gave a shrug. Brittany has to learn a lot. If she is able to change, only time will tell. He held out his hand. Olivia gave it a shake. They had developed a peculiar relationship, something akin to a friendship or mentor-student relationship. Let's raise a glass. William reached into his pocket and took out a little flask. To the start of your fresh life. Olivia smiled and continued. And to justice. There was laughing and music coming from the dance floor. While dancing, the bride and groom kept looking at the two people on the balcony. Nobody had any idea how tonight's events would affect their marriage yet. The only thing that was definite was that a new chapter was starting in Olivia's life, and that her long-held desire was finally coming true. And it was taking place in a manner she never would have thought possible. A chilly wave struck Chicago on the day of her Nouveau debut's big opening. Still, a big line gathered in front of the eatery. Reporters from local magazines and newspapers, culinary reviewers, and frequent customers of upscale dining establishments were all excitedly anticipating Olivia Brown's new restaurant's launch. Olivia was inside overseeing the last preparations. There were perhaps 50 chairs in her restaurant's airy, light-filled atmosphere. Despite its modest size, it demonstrated her meticulousness in every way. She turned around nervously and spotted William Ellis. Being the first customer, he had arrived very early. Following the opening, Olivia smiled and said, "A little. However, this was my dream. I'm prepared." Without a question, when it was time for the door to open, William gave her a little slap on the shoulder. Cheers came from the assembled throng as they arrived. Olivia greeted everyone at the door with warmth. They did not include her parents. The first night went really well. On the spot, Chicago's top culinary critics started drafting a review, hailing it as a rising star. "Chicago is where I was born." Reservations filled up 3 months in advance as images of the unmatched launch meals flooded social media. One day, about a month after opening, it was almost time to close. The entrance of the restaurant was opened by 2 familiar faces. George and Martha Brown were there. Olivia gave them a professional grin despite her little pause. "It's a privilege to greet you both," she answered coolly. "I'll set the table." Her parents looked anxious during the meal and looked at Olivia every now and then after. George got up and walked up to Olivia just as the restaurant was closing. "It was delicious," he remarked. Emotion suffocated his voice. "Daughter, you have my admiration." Olivia had a nonchalant response, "Thank you." "Yes." Martha also got up and sobbed. "We sincerely apologize for not understanding your talent and for betraying your trust." Olivia inhaled deeply. "Although I will never be able to forget what you did, I may eventually be able to forgive." Although it wasn't a full reconciliation, it was a start. In addition to continuing to pay back the $150,000 as stipulated in the contract, her parents were having difficulty regaining their social position. A large number of their pals had turned away. After the wedding event, Brittany's marriage was not going well. She was often viewed as Olivia's sister, and her relationship with the Ellis family had soured. She was also starting to see cracks in her relationship with Jason. "Has she gotten back to you?" One evening when he was at the restaurant, William inquired. "No." Olivia gave a headshake. "It appears that she still believes she is the victim." William replied philosophically that some problems can be resolved with time. However, not everyone gains knowledge from the restaurant's success. Olivia was encircled by a network of new acquaintances, co-workers, and others who recognized and valued her ability. Her life was now fuller and more satisfying than it had been. Olivia stood on the restaurant's balcony and looked up at the stars one evening after it had closed. She felt a cold air brush over her cheeks as the lights of Chicago stretched out below her. She thought back on the previous 6 months, the conflict with her family, the betrayal, the broken trust, and the unanticipated help and achievement. Sometimes life presents unanticipated gifts, and other times it is unjust. Olivia inhaled deeply. Her heart was slowly losing its fury. Her past no longer held her captive. She had a great future in store, a future she had earned by her own skill and hard work. Nouveau debut, a fresh start. Her life itself was symbolized